Normally everything should be alright. Yeah, it should work. I'm just going to configure a few things. You should hear background stuff, but like school. Not having a good time with the ink as you can see. Oh wait, so I'm going to hide. I'll try to experimentate with two monitors in the near future because I need those in order to separate whatever I'm doing behind the scene or what I show. That's what Destiny does, for instance. I have a second monitor, but it's stashed somewhere, and I have to. It's not the end of the world, but I'm going to take some walk, basically. But I think I'll manage this. Sorry, I'm just like making some configurations before I fucking. And then I'll should start in like 10 minutes. I'm just like basically configuring a few things, and then things should be like fine. Um, fuck. I need to do something. I forgot what. Ah, shit. I'll show you what I'm going to review. I just need to configure some stuff. Oh yeah, I need to because sometimes my streams are I just need to make some stupid sound tests. Just basically also tell me if my testing of if the sounds is alright and if I test it alright. It's difficult because sometimes the mid frequency not the mid frequency, what I'm talking about. The mid fuck. The loudness of the vid is going to vary from video to video. So it can vary by a lot. Like there's not really an official metric for it. So you can jump over a vid, it's going to be super loud, and you can jump over another, it's going to be super whatever. Just I think shit. I need to watch him. I hate watching Marino because I fucking hate her gods. But I need to. It's absolutely necessary in order to put my point across. We already last time, like 4 months ago, I went over that. Let me show you. I went over. This is the. I went over that vid, and I kind of like deconstructed her main points and shit. Oh, she doesn't look nice in that. I thought about fucking going over the Herzing Marino conversation because it could allow me to both deconstruct. You know what? I'm going to do that. Fuck that. I'm going to try to. That may be too specialized because I wanted to make an introduction that normies could look at. Fuck. Shit. Let me make a short.
In the Bahamas studying Atlantic spotted dolphins. Dr. Hersing is a 2008 Guggenheim Fellow.
Ah shit, I can't make that because I had to stop the fuck, I'm stupid. I'm listen, you know what? Fuck that shit. Oh shit. I shouldn't show my I blur that next. Because I shouldn't show my private shit from like Facebook. I mean it's like wait, I never know. Someone could try to like dogs me in that way, like finding private shit. I don't know. There's nothing bad in it, but I never know. So I'm going to blur that next. Fuck. I'm going to ask a friend. Can sorry, I need to know if the sound is fucking alright. Yeah, her apartment is ugly as fuck. That's basically how I I listen. I was educated by artists with an extremely elitistic view of like aesthetics and shit. If as a kid we went into the house of someone with like decoration like that, my mother will automatically fucking despise that person. I unfortunately did this like had a pregnancy into my education. Ah shit, how do you look at fucking chat? How do I look at chat? Fuck. Um no, okay. I'm going to stall now. No, wait. I don't know if I should fucking hesitate. Is it because I want to know if it's yeah, what I'm going to do. Because the problem when I have the thingy like that, it's not good for text. Basically, it prevents. I don't want to have the light vagina behind me. Okay, so yeah, let's focus. I fuck out 1 hour. Maybe I should. Maybe I should make 1 hour. Maybe I should like whatever. Fuck that.
I want to welcome you to the Whale Sanctuary Project live series. And today we are honored to be able to talk with my good friend and colleague, Denise Hersing.
Oh, first thing first, to give you some fucking context, Herzing is one of the current. Wait, I need just to look at some shit. Oh, fuck. I really need a second monitor. Otherwise, okay, it's just useless fucking notification. I need to.
Dr.
Whatever.
Denise Herzing is the founder.
No, okay, context. Oh my god, I hate having a DHD. So basically, Herzing is one of the few people today which are allegedly making some kind of first contact project to talk to cetaceans, decipher the language, whatever the fuck. The problem is de facto, like every other actors are trying something similar, like Sugarman, Nullman, well, Herman is dead now, Kuya is dead now, the Gavagaya project, like Kasewitz, all of these motherfuckers, they say they're doing something, but they de facto doing their jack shit, or extremely contrived systems that don't work, or they're like self-sabotaging themselves by limiting their own technology, or whatever. I go over that. I'll make vids where I will I already made that a long time ago, but it was useless shit. I'll make vids where I review their projects. I already reviewed Jim Norman, but I didn't publish it yet. I reviewed, oh whatever. I'll make that again in the future with the better streaming system setup. The thing is basically that Herzing supposedly is in that kind of first contact thingy, but he's doing jack shit. And Marino is interesting because Marino, the World Sanctuary Project, have some kind of contact with Herzing, but they never like explicitly talk about first contact. One of my problems with that, obviously, like apart from the fact that they're basically putting in captivity a sapient species, slavery with extra steps, is that those people never talk about having the possibility of like talking to them, like having their claims, like asking them of what they want. What about using first contact as a way to have them say what they want, to make claims, to say we want this, we want that, we want to get out, we want that kind of food, whatever. They don't even, the fact that they don't even conceptualize that is extremely damning. And realize as to the fact that it was more or less theorized by other people, not only by Kenneth Levasseur with the Tail-Faced program, but I'll go over Kenneth Levasseur. It's like deep fucking lore. I won't go over that. I'm sorry. Listen. I'm a big fucking autistic ADHD boy, and it's difficult for me to focus on something. But I'll focus on this because otherwise it would be 7 hours of stream, and I don't want to fucking stream for 7 hours. So,
And the director of the Wild Dolphin Project, as you know, and this is a project that has been going on for 32 years
yeah,
now.
32 years or not an ounce of progress. By the way, the CHA system, which is uh, uh, the system basically put forward by Herzing, makes zero fucking sense. Like zero fucking sense from a mythological point of view. I hope that they will talk about that so I can like show you why. I think I streamed about it like 4 months ago, but like I'll redo it and you will understand hopefully why I have fundamental disagreements on the methodology and whatnot. But like it's not difficult to understand. It makes zero fucking sense.
In the Bahamas, studying Atlantic spotted dolphins. Dr. Herzing is a 2008 Guggenheim Fellow, a fellow with the Explorers Club, a scientific advisor for the American Cetacean Society, and I'm very proud to say an advisor for the Whale Sanctuary Project. And she is a
Oh
board
shit, all that.
member of Schoolyard Films, and she's has a ton of scientific articles, peer-reviewed articles out, and has also co-edited a book called Dolphin Communication and Cognition
Wait,
that I was
adjust,
very
speed
fortunate
up.
to contribute to, and Dolphin Diaries.
I hate both of them, but whatever. It gives me fucking anxiety, but I have to do it. I have to do it for Shrek. I have to spread the butt cheeks for Shrek.
25 years with spotted dolphins in the
Can you?
Bahamas. So I would like to welcome Denise Herzing to the webinar. So what we'd like to do now, Denise, is I'd like to invite you to share your screen to provide some background as to the research.
I hate her voice with my gods. But whatever. I don't want to have like VDS against her. It's not that much about the character. It's about the whole project and its implication on whatever. I go over that because my point is basically to make you understand the my conceptual problem with sanctuaries, not just like whatever is going on right now. Like not my issue is not only with those guys. It's like the other competing projects, like the one by Richard Barry here, and some others like the one in Australia and whatnot. But I'll go over that. I already made a stream about the Rick Sanctuary project, so check out the YouTube channel and
doing. Show us some really cool slides, and then you can stop sharing your screen, and we'll be back in conversation.
can,
So I work with Atlantic spotted dolphins in the Bahamas, and as Lori said, for over 35 years now, actually. And they're a really nice species to study. I was lucky that way because they get spots with age, so you can tell their basic age class.
okay, this is normal
Now
shit. I'm just sorry. It's just that I want to speed up so I can hear the shit which is relevant.
we do use kind of traditional techniques of dorsal fin ID, but we use their spots to identify them. For example, the older, darker animal you see up here is Mugsy. Is in this shot, she's actually 35 years old. So that's the kind of degree of spotting they get with age. And I chose the Bahamas primarily because I wanted to work underwater, and I really wanted to see how dolphins communicated underwater and over generations. So I kind of settled.
Sorry, if you don't know me on the a few mates online, especially Russell Hoskins, Andrew Ranju and Asulu, Vladimir Murovet, and a few of those are making a similar project. Basically, we're like the devices that we want to use for our own project are being built, but the COVID like delayed our project, so we're like waiting still. And we're probably going to test them in like 1 or 2 months with a free solitary dolphin in Brittany called Randy or Donny. But I'll go over that. I'll go
In
over
the
that.
Bahamas, we work non-invasively, so we have about being too invasive.
Well,
And we're on
sure,
our
she's
fourth generation now,
roboting.
which is
Sorry, just I'll decelerate because the roboting is impeding.
great. And my primary tool started and continues to be an underwater video with a hydrophone, so we get sound and behavior simultaneously.
I'll
Now, the
decelerate.
Bahamas is just off the coast of Florida here on the left, and we work on primarily on the northernmost sandbank called Little Bahama Bank. You see on the top there, I guess I can point to it even, in this area. And we also work at a second study site now across this deep water in Bimini, this is a great Bahama bank. So the Bahamas is a pretty neat archipelago of submerged islands. So all the light colored area are very shallow waters, anywhere from 10 to 20 feet. And it provides a pretty
Why is she roboting like that?
safe place not only for dolphins but for field researchers. Profit, the Wild Dolphin Project, has a beautiful 60-foot catamaran that actually got donated to the project early on. And so this is our live aboard lab for about 5 months every summer. We eat, sleep, do our work from this vessel. So we're really live aboard vessel, and we work pretty remotely, so we can be 40 miles offshore easily for our studies. Now, spotted dolphins are kind of like bottlenose in the same.
Yeah, okay, so basically for the normies, the thing is, the dolphin, the caricatural dolphin you see everywhere, the flipper one, is one species, the bottlenose dolphin, which will be Tursiops truncatus, well, Aduncus if you're on the other side of the ocean on the Pacific, and there are distinct species. They're more well known because they're more like they're basically a more cosmopolitan species or genus that you see on the coast rather than off the coast in open sea. So most of the cetacean species are less numerous, or they're more in open sea, or they go in bigger depths, so they're not as easy to observe. And she doesn't work on Tursiops. She works in another species, which is Stenella, not frontalis. I don't remember. I think they're Stenellas. So a bunch of bigger spotted dolphins, whatever. This. Just so you know that the caricature we have of the dolphin doesn't really correspond to reality. There's like 60 different species of cetaceans with the baleen whales on the toothed whale. The baleen whales use infrasounds. The toothed whales use ultrasounds, like beyond our hearing capability. And they have different ecological niches and whatnot. But I'll go over that. And also know that, yeah, cetacean are mammals, not fishes, blah, blah, all of this.
So
I go over that because a lot of people, unfortunately, don't know a lot about the subject, and they tend to believe that cetaceans are fishes and stuff like that, but whatever. It's not, whatever.
Nurse for 3 to 4 years. The mother has a calf every 3 to 4 years. and this is the strongest in the first year. Um, so that's very mammalian, it turns out. And pregnancies, they're pregnant for about a year, and like I said, they have a 3 to 4 year calving interval. So this is the basic biology we can track
Basic
following them, and
biology.
it gives you these neat family trees, as you see here. This is a family tree of blotches, a female that was already there, and you can see she's got quite a family line. Not everybody survived here, but we actually have quite a few calves and grandkids from blotches. So some females are better
Oh,
reproductive.
sorry. I'm so sorry. I haven't seen this chat. Sing for right. Up. Okay. Like that? Is it good
Now, one
like
thing we've
that?
learned just about the general society is that, whoops, let me go back
Isn't
here,
this
that
kind of
females
defending?
associate by reproductive status. So you see Little Gash and Rosemole here, the two more mature animals with spots. They were close buddies as juveniles growing up, and then Rosemole got pregnant before Little Gash did, so she started hanging out with other females. And gradually, Little Gash caught up to her, reproduced her first offspring, Little Haley, and then they started associating again. So a female can actually change her associations based on her reproductive status. And we want to find out who the fathers are, so we non-invasively collect their DNA by scooping poop in the water. This is a favorite job of my
No,
graduate
this is
students.
normal shit. I want to go
And
to the part where I disagree on Start to Scream. Whatever.
after you take samples of their fecal material and match it with, and what we found basically is the older males are the ones that sire the most offspring, so they seem to be most successful in paternity. And this is really the only way to find out paternity. Now, males, turns out, are really lifelong friends. They form their bonds when they're juveniles. And these are strong bonds that last a lifetime. They hang out in small coalitions of 2 or 3, maybe 4. And they have kind of a different job than the females. They tend to protect the pod. They protect the area that the nursery groups are in, for example. So they have different roles in the society and different structures this way. Now, one of the very cool things about working in the Bahamas, which I didn't really anticipate or expect, was that bottlenose dolphins lived in the same area, and that sometimes they forage together with the
Yeah, I know,
spotteds,
yeah.
although that's a small percentage of the time. Young spotted females babysit bottlenose cats occasionally. And the bottlenose have a bit of a dominance over the spotteds. They're a lot bigger and stronger, so they can bully the spotteds in their interactions. But in the end, the two species actually will form alliances when there's a mutual disturbance. So, for example, if male bottlenose and spotteds are fighting,
This is one of the reasons why I screamed a lot when I made the video about the dolphin embassy when they say like dolphins don't have politics. Like, no, this is a good demonstration that the societies are more complex and whatnot. That said, that tends it's less the case of researchers, but especially in the medias, that it tends to like basically the point is that cetaceans as a whole are more pacific than us. And there's clearly a tendency toward non-violence, which is pretty interesting, especially non-violence against humans. Only, I think it probably has like cultural ties, but at the same time, you can see violence and shit, but it's more like more indirect, blah blah. And the thing is that, let's say that, especially when you go to BuzzFeed articles or whatnot, they either go on one side where they're totally denied the existence of violence, or they're exaggerated on they like cherry pick some stuff that some researchers have shown, and they use that to like push a narrative that dolphins are all fucking rapists that kill or rape children or whatever the fuck. And I absolutely hate this shit. Because then you look at the data and it's clearly more nuanced and whatnot. And it tends to be used to like go against the notion of first contact or whatever. But whatever, I go over that in subsequent streams. This is whatever. Basically, what I want to go to the ports when they talk about fucking sanctuarization and first contact, because this is the relevant political aspect.
they will join forces and chase a predator away that comes by, like a shark or even an offshore bottlenose, which is not a resident. So that's actually been one of the most surprising things of the work, and really cool to watch how intimate and regular their interactions are. Now, we know a lot about their sounds because we correlate them with behavior, so hopefully here you'll hear a signature whistle. Anyway, signature whistles are frequency modulated whistles.
So you could try that again.
I have no, it's just it's too difficult or long. But no, okay. The notion of signature whistle is kind of like important in current cetology, but it's kind of controversial because it's kind of suspected to be an artifact of especially of captive settings or whatnot. But I will go over that the stream. I will have to go over Vladimir Markov shit, and it's like it's complicated. But basically, I dislike that notion because it tends to like push the idea that we have to understand cetacean linguistics under a extremely rigid frame of work, a limited one. I don't. I go over that in much better. Okay, cool.
Well, those were burst pulse sounds you hear. These are squawks. They're used in close proximity, usually fighting. Then they have echolocation
Next
clicks.
time I'll use both
These tend to
monitors.
be navigation, feeding, echolocation clicks, basically sonar. And then finally you have buzzes, which are basically packets of clicks.
I went over. I think I made a vid where I go over her TED talk. It's on the list. I don't remember where, and but it's not important. It was this. No, this is another one. I don't know. It is
Courtship,
not.
discipline, and they might have a tactile effect with the dolphins too. Let me see if I can maybe play that signature whistle again. Let me see if you hear this.
Yeah. Other problem
Oh,
I
yes.
have.
Oh,
I this is 15 kilohertz. My understanding of there is here's the thing. Most this is also the basis of our work or project. Most of the vocalizations are ultrasonic. So what happens is humans listen between 0 and 20 kilohertz, and cetaceans, more or less, when it comes to toothed cetacean, not mysticid whales. Mysticid whales are infrasonic, but like toothed whales communicate between something like or hear between something like 5 to, depending over the species, as far as 200 kilohertz. And most of the vocalizations are going to be well fucking beyond our hearing capability. This is a big fucking problem because a lot of researchers tend to have like hydrophones that just pick up the 10% of like the vocalization because it's between 0 to 20 kilohertz, even less. I'm not sure when it comes to hearing. I don't know. I need to go over her studies again. I went over them, but I go over her papers again in another stream. This is important. I'll try to compare them to like stuff like Herman and Markov and shit. We'll do that in subsequent.
well, all right.
Great.
Here sets up. We'll just go from here. Okay, so those are signature whistles of a dolphin. I'll play the burst pulses for you here again.
Probably should have. No, I should have put them on.
And so burst pulses are the most unstudied type of sound, but they're one of the more common types of sounds, which we'll talk about that a little bit.
This is again. This is the problem, right? I mean, we know that cetacean vocalization are extremely fucking complex. They're kind of difficult to like separate just when you pick them up, especially because it's not just one thing that was put forward by researchers and whatnot is that it's not just sound in itself as heard sound, which is important to them. It's echolocation as qualia in itself. I don't know if you're familiar with the notion of qualia, as a sense in itself, if you will. And there is some speculation, more than speculation, but there is some inference that cetaceans may like pick up echolocation as if it was like a 3D. Like basically, if you bought a fucking sausage and you cut it, and it has like a trunk of a fucking tree, okay, like in fucking Arrival, okay, basically that. So this 3D aspect of sound may be extremely important to them, and this is something which is extremely difficult for us to pick up, blah blah, all this. But this is one of the problem, right? They concentrate in an extremely rigid, specialized part of sound that may be the product of some kind of methodological bias or whatever. I won't go over that. I will have to deconstruct Herman work and whatnot. This is not important.
Echolocation clicks and buzzes.
My main problem with Herzing is not there. My main problem with Herzing is the CHT system, which is a fucking mess. Makes no fucking sense.
Okay, so those are signature whistles. Here we go. First pulse. So we hear those during fighting and aggression. Echolocation clicks we hear when they're hunting and digging in the sand. And then finally, packets of clicks, which we call buzzes, that they use during courtship, during discipline, when a mother's disciplining a calf. And they're close proximity sounds usually. Okay, got through them all. How about that? Good. So I will just leave it set up like this. So the interesting thing about all these sounds is that we have known about signature whistles for over 40 years. We know we can measure their contours visually.
Yeah, okay, she's technically right because of her initial Herman work.
Okay, all that, and we can use neural nets even to measure these sounds. But as you just saw, there's all sorts of other sounds that dolphins make that we really want to understand because they're more common even than whistles. One of the things we have to keep in mind when we're looking at dolphin communication, of course, is that they're making sounds way above
To
our
be honest,
range.
I
So on the bottom left,
hesitate.
you see narrow
Sorry.
band whistles, which I just played.
I hesitate in watching that vid because it doesn't go to the content I want. It just reiterates what she says in her fucking TED talk. And I want to go over. Nah, yeah, fuck that shit. You know what? What are the other vids as a motherfucker made? I went over little blue, little white, but like that was like a long ass. Shut up. Oh my god, yeah. Who the fuck are those people? That's yeah, Marino on probably Visser, which I fucking hate. Visser is responsible for the death of a young orca called Bob back in 2016. Basically, she captured a young orca, nearly a baby, but not like a baby, a young orca off the coast of like New Zealand. I don't remember where, North Island, I think, by the Milford Sound. Like not exactly there, but like there. She in the guise of like a rescue operation, she put her in a mini fucking tank full of feces and shit. He died 3 days after, and then they refused to make an autopsy on the ground of some politically correct bullshit with the local Maori rights. Absolutely, absolutely disgusting. I make a stream about it because it's one of the most damning. It's one of the most damning problems with our activists, which is they basically mimic the worst parts of the dolphinarium industry. They're supposed to like criticize. I mean, that's the whole problem, right? I was with those guys a long time ago, and they basically went over the side of the people they supposedly fight against. Um, no, no, I won't go over that. I go over shit. I don't know. Nah, fuck that shit. I'm going to
For you.
continue.
This is what we hear in the water, and everything else is what we don't hear above that. And you can see we have harmonics of the whistles on the right that are very high outside our hearing range. And in some cases, we don't even detect there's a presence
Is this? Yeah, okay. So it means that they put the whole fucking not just the 20 kilohertz limit. Okay, that's
of
cool.
sound in a narrow band.
Wait, this is kind of weird because why? Forget it. I don't know who to.
So again, having the right tools for any animal study really is important because their sensory systems are different than ours. The other thing we need to think about when we're studying dolphin communication is who's making the sound. And this has been and still is a major challenge for us as well as most other researchers. We've been working with a colleague in Singapore, Matthias Hoffman-Kunt, who's developed a...
Okay, so I wasn't aware of that, but the thing you have to know is that the different current first contact projects, like Herzing, the GVGAB project, Sugarman, Kazewitz, sorry, Kuyai, what those motherfuckers called, the Darwin project with the spam whales. I think there are some others. They fucking hate their gods. They hate each other. They never talk to each other. They don't try to cross their results with each other. They don't refer to each other in their respective papers. This is one of the most damning issues with those projects. The fact that they're incapable of like collaborating is like it's clearly extremely counterproductive from a methodological point of view, but extremely symptomatic of an inherent problem with those projects. But I'll go over that. Yeah, Jim Norman as well, the Jim Norman project. And basically what she's describing was also made parallelly by both I think the GVGAB project, but I'm not sure. It was made by some people in back in 2007 in Sweden called the Elvis Project, and then by most importantly by Kasewitz. So it means that parallel to her, there are other people that develop a similar system, or they basically ignore each other. It's like the others don't exist. They don't give a fuck. This is one I absolutely hate this shit. It's like here's the thing. I don't like those people, but at least no, I'm like building a website or whatnot. I acknowledge the work of everyone because I'm very well aware that if I can't fuck up with our project with Ross and whatnot, or the specific system we want to set up, or we need to look at every fucking publications because maybe they found something we didn't that may like totally question the way we do things, right? Like maybe we find one paper that shows that frequency translocation doesn't work, blah blah. Like I don't think so, but it's possible. The fact that they're not doing this with each other is like. But I go over the different projects, why they dislike each other. It's like just faction game. It's basic politics. Like one of the most damning issues is, for instance, in our activism, the fact that Richard O'Barry on the whole Marino Visa WDC block hate each other. It's one of the most symptomatic. But whatever, I'm just dispersing
Triangulation unit
myself.
with video underwater for us, and this is one of the results it gives us is on the video screen. It would mark what animals are making sound. So the little red squares are all the dolphins that are echolocating. So this we could use finally to
Ah,
get
shit, yeah.
dolphin to
Well,
dolphin
okay,
communication,
whatever.
which is
I
pretty
didn't want
exciting.
Yes.
Long in coming, and hopefully we'll put it to use out in the Bahamas. But what we're doing with our 30 plus year data set of video and underwater sounds is we're really trying to take a really close look at, do
I
dolphins have
could go over some video that explains like the initial John C. Lilly operations, maybe the Janus project and whatnot. I could do that, but I don't
something
know.
like language or language like structures? So these are three spectrograms that you're looking at sound. So basically what you're looking at is time on the horizontal and frequency on the
Yeah, basically she's going to say that there's more structural analogies between like human and dolphin spectrograms than with other animals like hair ground dogs or whatever the
vertical.
fuck. Yeah, okay,
And this is
whatever.
what human speech looks like next to Einstein. Then you have prairie dogs who have, interesting alarm calls that aren't dissimilar. And then finally you see dolphins. And so what we don't know is there really language in there somewhere meeting? Are we just missing?
This is not true. We have a lot of fucking circumstantial evidence about citation language. I'll go over that. Basically, our point is that but this harks back to epistemology because epistemology is like our big fucking point. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Um, Basically, I try to epistemology is very important in the sense that our main fucking point is that everything we say about cetacean behavior linguistics makes sense from the current data we have. And then when you look at the bulk of data about the way cetaceans act, for instance, cetaceans saving humans, cetaceans saving each other, the social structure of cetaceans, pacifism in cetaceans, the fact that cetaceans tend not to attack humans, even in populations that attack other cetaceans for food, for instance, cetacean collaborating with humans in the context of hunting and fishing, erotism in cetaceans, hunting strategies and whatnot. More everything we know about cetacean brain, although I have like contentions with that. That's one of my critiques of Marino as well. Plus what we know of their linguistic structures, acoustics, blah blah. Plus what we know of other creatures where we see like high degree of cognition and the correlation between high cognition, linguistic systems, and how the physiology works and whatnot. Evolution. It's the notion of cetacean sapiency makes sense. That's the point. Or the notion of cetacean linguistics also makes sense. The problem is that, here's the thing. There's a lot of different projects that supposedly go toward first contact, but then in 40 years they do jack shit and they self-sabotage themselves and whatever. But I'll go over that. Herzing is one of the most damning examples of someone that voluntarily self-sabotaged the whole fucking system, which would be the CHUD system.
We're not understanding it. And some people will say, we've looked at this already and blah, blah, blah. My view on it is we just have not had the tools. And now with machine learning and AI, we have some pretty serious.
I don't agree with that, but basically what we're doing is simple frequency translocation. Basically, to explain our project, what we want to do is basically you take everything between 0 and 20 kilohertz, and we translocate it between, say, I don't know, 30 and 50 kilohertz, or 60 and 80 kilohertz, for instance, and then you take whatever they say between in that frequency range, or you go back to what's 0 and 20 kilohertz. And the idea is we won't understand the language. We can't. We will need some kind of brain-computer interface technology. We don't have to do that. But in theory, we should be able to create some kind of middle language, a pidgin, a lingua franca. And we don't understand, that's the thing. All the competing projects more or less approximated that. White Dog more or less theorized that. Jim Norman more or less theorized that. Janus more or less kind of relied on that principle. Herzing seems to kind of go in that direction, but not entirely. But they always go they tend to jump toward extremely fucking complicated systems that are like what in French we like to call gas factories, like those extremely fucking complex, like, oh, what if we use machine learning? Oh, what if we use a very complex fucking software that automatically takes whatever sounds and creates a new sound, blah blah. Or what if we create a visual interface, like this kind of stuff. On whole point is that, okay, maybe it's needed. We don't think so, but like maybe it's needed. But why not starting with the simplest system possible here, frequency translocation, and then if it doesn't work, okay, then maybe we need to accelerate the output. Okay, maybe we need to create some kind of 3D system. Okay, maybe we need like all this shit. But no, instead they jump directly toward extremely fucking complicated systems that go nowhere. That's one of our main contentions.
Tools to start parsing out these sounds and looking for structure and language. So that's one of the main things we've been working at.
That's one
Okay,
of
so
our.
I'm gonna
It's
actually stop there, Lori.
Okay.
one of our main issues is that basically it's not that much the case of Herzing. Herzing is kind of a mid-tier into this, but much of the obsession of, not all of them, but some of the other competing projects is that they're obsessed with the idea of cracking the code. You know, they have this Alan Turing romanticist take on cetacean communication, which are, oh yeah, we need to take 50 years to crack the fucking code. Why? Why not trying to create a middle language? Since the dawn of humanity, different cultures created pigeons and creoles and shit to communicate for basic barter and shit. Why, like, this is one of the things I don't understand. This obsession, even extremely smart people, I've seen some, whatever, I'll go over that because there's some relevant papers I want to go over in the near future about that. But this obsession with crack coding is code cracking, sorry, crack coding is one of my main contentions, not that much with Herzing, but with some others, like, especially with like Kasewitz and whatnot, but like,
You can
whatever.
stop sharing your screen.
I'm gonna let you take it, and then we can look at some videos if we have some time or questions.
Great, terrific, terrific. That was great. Thank you. So that was really fascinating, and you just touched upon so many different things that I want to get into in the time that we have today. I mean, you started out talking about the fact that you chose to work in the field because you were really interested in following a whole society of dolphins over the generations, and that's something that obviously is not easy to do in a captive environment. Can you say any?
Most studies about cetacean linguistics were made in captivity, and Herzing was, as far as I'm aware, the first to have like done this in a free setting, if you will. But well, I'm pretty confident over that.
More about why you chose your approach to studying them?
Sure. Well, when I was a student, I was really just interested in what animals were thinking, like what's going on in their minds. And right at that time, honestly, Jane Goodall was out looking at.
I have also problem from an epistemological point of view. Basically, I'm extremely critical. I know that's the normie take, okay? That's the normie take. St. John C. fucking Lilly back in the 60s is the text that you will see, I don't know, in fucking Blackfish or whatever, which is this over-focus over brain. My point is that while there is some circumstantial evidence from brain that goes in the direction of cetacean sapiency, the main way we know they're like intelligent, sapient, whatever, is behavior, not brain. On that, unfortunately, there is a certain doxine or culture which also comes from behaviorism as a whole, which tends to assume that behavior is like this kind of blurry shit that you can tell. But on the contrary, behavior is quite rigid. Like, we can't interpret behavior anyhow. There are certain patterns on a certain systematicity in behavior, which gives poor ambiguity over how to interpret it. And especially when you use first the Occam Russell, but especially the Russell of the synthetic theory of evolution. That's why Lorentzian from Conrad Lorenz, classical ethology is so damn important. But I'll make a stream about epistemology, about Conrad Lorenz versus behaviorism, epistemology, Hilary Putnam, blah, blah. I'll go over that. This is extremely fucking important. I know this is some kind of weird theory that is not very extremely easy to go into, but I promise you, this is extremely fucking important at all points. Like, I'll go over as well, like the way, like, especially in popular culture, the use of anthropomorphism tends to be weaponized against more favorable views on cetacean or non-human intelligence in a way that is clearly not epistemologically viable. But this is, I'll go over that in another. Basically, Marino, the proof of Marino is that she's one of them is that she's in fact the current main representative of that brain take, if you will. Those people live in some kind. It's like the dodo. You know the dodo, like they lived in an island that had no predators. So they became fat and naive, and then the Dutch came and they ate all of them. That's basically it. They live on some kind of heuristic on epistemological island in cetology, where Hilary Putnam never wrote fucking, uh, never wrote his views on brain epistemology and multiple reversibility back in '67. That's basically it.
chimps. Diane Fossey was studying gorillas, and Cynthia Moss was looking at elephants. And all these scientists were out there, and their approach was clearly to plant themselves in a place where they could observe natural behavior and try to get the animals to trust them and be benign observers. So that was really
This is, I go over as well the importance of the construction of the notion of wilderness, because one of my basic takes is that the notion of nature wilderness, despite being extremely intuitive in our culture, are not extremely relevant when it comes to understanding the cetacean problem. I go over that piece by piece by showing you different pieces of data, papers, whatnot. But the basic problem is that if we are to understand them as sapient people with culture, assuming that they're wild animals, living in what we understand as a wilderness, as a space, is extremely fucking problematic from a both an ethical and logical point of view. But I go over that.
my major model for doing what I did.
And it has implication when it comes to the field of law, especially.
Luckily, I was young and naive enough to know that it might be hard.
Hey, have a good one.
I thought, well, what else have I got to do, right? I can get out
Well,
there.
they don't do it underwater.
Wait,
So-
what?
Yeah,
What
that
the
adds
fuck?
up.
What did the current say? What?
And elephants. And all these scientists were out there, and their approach was clearly to plant themselves in a place where they could observe
Elephant observation is so fucking damn rare. I know the wife. I know it's horrible to like refer to someone as the wife of, but I forgot her name. The wife of Roger Payne, Catherine Payne, I believe, Catherine Payne. She's one of the rare scientists that tries to studies elephant linguistics on the behavior of other.
natural behavior and try to get the animals to trust them and be benign observers. So
But basically, my main point is that when it comes to cetaceans, understanding what they do as natural behavior is extremely fucking problematic. Not just because it's not like an 8-ball take. It's like from a methodological and logical point of view, it poses a certain number of problems. We forced toward understanding this as a, at least tentatively, as a cultural and conceptual, as something that comes from some degree from a conceptual and abstract causality. And it's so weird because those people are obsessed with the notion of culture. And for instance, one of my takes is that we have to revalorize the notion of instinctive behavior. And those people are clearly like crypto behaviorists for reasons I will explain. But at the same time, they reject, for instance, the idea that there may be some kind of core instinctive drive toward hunting in cetaceans. But at the same time, they reject the idea that they tend toward an understanding of them as having pure natural behavior. They have a blind spot when it comes to understanding what they do as something that grounds itself into culture or society, basically. But this will make, and you will understand this more easily if I show you like the empirical data and whatnot.
that was really my major model for doing what I did. And luckily, I was young and naive enough to know that it might be hard, but I thought, well, what else have I got to do, right? I can get out
Well,
there.
they don't do it underwater. So
Yeah, that adds up.
I don't know what they're
Whole
talking
other
about. I'm
issue,
too
of course.
autistic
But
for
yeah,
that.
so I was lucky to find the Bahamas, and my first year I went out there and I was like, why isn't anyone out here studying these guys, right? Because you could get in the water and watch them. But clearly, it's expensive, it's time consuming, and it takes a lot of detailed diligence, like any scientific project, really. So what's really unknown when I talk about my work to people is that I spent about 5 years, the first 5 years, just on the boat anchored. And we let the dolphins just come to the boat because we were out there, there's 40 miles offshore. We let them explore us, and we would slip in the water when they came by, and we'd start taking.
Okay, that's one of my main issues. So I understand that one of the biggest like takes when it comes to all of this is not to harass the dolphins, right? Okay. That's a basic step when it comes to like whale watching and shit, because people like normies tend to go when there is like a solitary dolphin that goes to a spot like Randy or Fungi, whatever. There tends, depending on the circumstances, to have to be like 1 trillion idiots going to the sea, harassing them, putting beer in the blowhole and shit. Okay. And then there is the whale watching industry, and how the whale watching industry tends, not all of the time, but tends to go and harass fucking whales. Well, that's the basic problem. But at the same time, for me, it's absolutely clear that if we want to understand their cultures or whatnot, and obviously talk to them, we have to engage toward them, not in a harassing way, by being patient, by, respecting their consent. Consent is it's not a meme, it's a big fucking notion when it comes to that problem. And the fact that those people don't talk about the notion of consent or bodily autonomy is one of the biggest flaws of the current cetacean activism, but I'll go over that. But like, the fact that those people refuse any form of interaction is a big fucking issue, especially because other people like White Dog, Jim Nolman, Ken Lovas not that much, especially a bunch of people that work with solitarism, mostly think of Jean Plug, whatever. Well, they had direct contact with some populations of some solitary cetaceans, and they created durable friendship for sometimes more than 30 years. And I think we have to engage like that towards cetaceans. I mostly think when it comes to the White Dog back in the 80s made an experiment when he went in a river toward the cetaceans, that solitary cetacean that went there, and played a flute, I believe, with a hydrophone. And the dolphin will respond to him with a few complex sounds or whatnot, or more. He will do more complex sounds, and he will answer with more complex sounds. And at some point, what he realized is that he went toward the ultrasonic frequencies that he couldn't hear. So basically, in his fucking book, he says, well, we will need a machine that makes frequency translocation. And in 30 years, he did nothing. So
Photos for photos.
this is also one of the reasons why we believe our machine will probably work, but we will know that in 2 or 3 months. So
trying to sex them, but that was
stay
an
fucking
issue in itself
tuned.
in the beginning because of dolphin etiquette, which we could talk about. It's kind of fun.
Yes.
But I really invested those first 5 years to establish that we weren't going to hurt them, we weren't going to harass them, we weren't going to grab them, touch them, and feed them, and all that stuff.
The feeling thing, no, I'll go over that in another stream. I mean, but like the touching thing, it depends. Again, the problem is about consent on bodily autonomy. It's about creating relationship without forcing them. But the denial of the relation with the other is something which is extremely fucking damning. Not all of them are like that. Some of the more esoteric new agey part of our activism has more tolerance toward the idea of relationship, and even then they fuck up. But like, whatever, I'll go over
And it really
that in
paid
the
off.
stream.
They finally started showing us their natural behavior. So that was a worthwhile
Again,
investment.
don't you think this is interesting, right? Let's deconstruct that. Like, if I go try to understand the way you behave, or the way I behave, or the way Lori fucking behaves, like, would I understand as natural behavior? Like, no, we understand this as going through the filter of culture, society, and whatnot. Like, obviously, cetaceans don't have a technology like us, but how comes that those people explicitly talk about the notion of cetacean sapiency, culture, blah blah, and they talk extremely explicitly about the notion of culture? That the whole front of people that have been talking about the notion of animal culture for like, what, 20 years now? And at the same time continue with the notion of naturality. I go over notably the anthropologist and ecologist, Ramachandra Gu, William Cronon. I know that I name drop a lot, but I go over the papers that successfully, I believe, they construct the notion of wilderness, but this is a big fucking issue with them. And this has also implication when the whole field of the sanctuaries, the sanctuary problem and whatnot. But I'll go over that.
It absolutely is. And, what I always say about studying these animals in their natural habitat, and I love your saying on their own terms.
In their world,
In their world on their own terms.
The notion of natural habitat is the biggest issue, right? Because it harks back, like, if we understand their spaces as a wilderness, we don't understand them as a political space, which will be, like, in a way owned by them. And this is a big fucking problem, because then how can we stop any justification for the plundering and destruction of their spaces, which is what is going on today? I mean, since the 60s, we have an expansion of nation states toward the oceans. There is a claim with what we call the exclusive economic zones of nation states toward the resources in the ocean, the halieutic resources, the fish and whatnot, and then the mining resources like polymetallic nodules. This has big fucking implications. The fact that there's an entire fucking sapient species out there occupying those spaces, where we go there, we consider these spaces as terra nullius, we basically plunder and destroys it, and pollute it and whatnot, and when we capture them to enslave them, I'm sorry, this has fucking implications. I know that some leftoids don't like when we make parallelisms between like humans and non-humans issues and whatnot, but like, I'm sorry, this is damning. And the fact that those people, despite thinking about this for like what, 30, 40 years, haven't totally realized this. even then, there are some texts by John Lilly back in the 70s where he talks about this, like where he realizes the problem of property and whatnot. So it shows you that even then, people like Marino and Herzing are unfortunately more regressive than their predecessors on those specific points. But I'll go over that
Right.
as
It
well.
really is. And you're learning not about what they can do or learn if you train them to do something, but what they do, what
Right.
they choose to do. And that's so much more revealing in many ways.
I mean, again, I agree with those like core points, but my disagreements are more on the fine lines. And then you go where the fine lines have like clear implications.
You
Um,
mentioned dolphin etiquette. I want to know, what is that? Tell our listeners what that is.
Well, my view on it,
wait, what did she say? Because that has an implication on.
I want to know, what is that? Tell our listeners what that is.
I don't know what she fucking means. The problem as well, again, like one of my I repeat myself because, but the fact that one of my big fucking objectives, if we succeed with both prototypes, is for cetaceans or elephants, because this has also implication when it comes to elephants, which also we consider as a sapient species, or at least a species that could engage into a dialogue with, is the ability for them to make claims. This is, for me, I believe, the most important part of like standpoint theory, what in French we call parole située, situated speech, if you will. It's not that much, that minority is right because they're like, because they're part of that minority. The point is, if you're part of a minority or a specific people that lives a specific problems, workers or whatnot, is what kind of claims do you do? Like, what do you want? Do you want specific land back? Do you want, like, this is for me the most important part, and this has again implications. This is also why I believe, although for me it's like more of an unconscious process. I don't believe those people are like frotter. How do you mean? Like, I don't think they're making that with their hands or being like, we're going to. No, I think it's an unconscious process, but like the fact that they're not realizing or not expliciting in their documents, text, videos, right, that first contact when it comes to the sanctuary model is extremely damning, because first contact will imply the notion of claim. The fact that, the sanctuarist cetacea will say, well, we want this, we want that, we want to be free, we want that amount of fish, we don't want to be trained. That's a fucking danger for the hegemony of like humankind, if you will. I mean, not the hegemony of humankind, but a certain anthropocentrist mindset. That's also why I believe most first contact projects failed. Not because they failed basically from a technical point of view, because most proponents at the end didn't want that to succeed. They just wanted to maintain the status quo. This is extremely unfortunate because a lot of them were extremely smart. I mostly think of like John Lilly, White Dog, and whatnot, but like, but I may in the future. I fucking hate with Visa with my gods. I'll go over the Bob the Killer Whale thing in another stream.
Well, my view
This is
on it,
important.
it's how you behave in the water with a species that you don't know. I mean, I learned a bit of the hard way. For example, in those early years when we were anchored on our boat,
Right.
we would
I
get
need to problem with the light.
in the water, like I said, and we try to get photos of the dolphins. And we really wanted to sex them, which means you have to get underneath them or they have to turn upside down so you see their genital slits and all that. And so,
They're looking
we're
at the
anxious to get
fucking
our data,
genitals of
right? So
cetacean with all the
one of the
consent.
first
But
times I tried to, there was two dolphins swimming ahead of me, and so I turned upside down to look underneath them, and
I'm
suddenly
joking. I'm
one
joking.
dolphin kind of like moved away with the other and pushed the other away. And after a time, I realized,
That said,
that's a friendship.
I'm not that joking that much. I mean, we don't know if that could have a cultural implication, right? Like, I know by experience because of like what others researchers shown and whatnot that cetaceans can have very odd reactions to the way we act on like obviously it's very difficult to talk about like decency or whatnot with a species which is very different from ours. But nonetheless, this is the kind of stuff I will be prudent as a. But whatever, this is a fine fucking detail. Whatever. The point is that the whole scientist mindset in the worst sense of the term, because what I do is also science fundamentally. But believe me, I'm fucking critical of the people that are in the esoteric new age aspect of it. Don't believe they communicate telepathically with stations. I fucking hate that as well. But I have to like more or less tolerate them because some of the people that are closest to me from a methodological point of view believe in that. But basically, if they can separate their beliefs from hardline methodology, I'd have no problem. But if they start using those beliefs on like fucking shove them into the ass of like proper methodology, this is where I get my fucking revolver out. But like my point is that again, this whole extremely rigid scientific methodology of not engaging into them, objectifying them, this is part of the issue, my God. How can we claim there are people or not engaged with them as a people? That's part of the. Well, this is not just her. I mean, at least she's working with free cetaceans. I mean, the first Lily, Kasowitz, Herzing, Sugarman, they're all working with captives, my God, with everything it implies in terms of training, stress, destruction of their societies, objectification, exploitation, institutionalization, and whatnot. If all, whatever.
That's right.
That's what the rules. I mean, I kind of knew that, but like, certainly they know I'm a human, you know. But it
Yeah.
was something they just didn't allow, which was interesting. The other, so that was, I consider that a kind of an etiquette of being with the
A
dolphin.
faux pas, a dolphin faux pas.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean,
Yeah.
they probably laughed, but
Yeah.
but another really interesting one was just following them in the water when there's a tight group. Again, I used to try to like.
But
So
is she claiming that they didn't want her to look at their genitals? Because this is the case, it's extremely interesting. That shows you again that you have to. What they're doing is. This is the clown version of a Malinowski, right? I mean, basically, I'm just trying to make the proper anthropological work they were doing in the 30s, back in the 2020s, but whatever. I mean, well, of course, the subject is not anthropos, but you know.
In the back of this group of dolphins, and I try to move to a different position to get a different side of an animal
Interesting.
photograph, and they would reposition me. Go back to your place, human. It's
Really?
so yeah. So those subtle things were like, oh, that's probably how they do it with each other, right? That you have a position in this little traveling pod.
I mean,
that's your place.
They do that because obviously they don't normally look at each other's genitals. When they mate, they position themselves upside down a certain way, face to face or whatnot. So that makes sense. Also, the relationship between sex and cetaceans is extremely interesting in the sense that they don't have the same conception of sex than us. So, for instance, males don't they yeah, I joke, they ejaculate in like 3 seconds, but they basically like they don't need to like wait 30 minutes for that. In a few seconds they can re-ejaculate, you know. So it's like the dick goes in, ejaculates, goes out, in, out, in, out, and then, you know. So it's very they don't have the same relationship. And then the thing is the penis, the vagina as well, not the vulva, not the vagina. The penis mostly can be used as a hand. It can be used to enter in contact or interacting with objects. For instance, when there is some paper that describes a cetacean procession with a dead dolphin. So there was a dead dolphin, and each dolphin went toward the dead, like interacted with it, touched it, and then went over basically. Or there was one that interacted with its like penis. But the interesting part is that it doesn't look like some dominance aspect sexually. It looks like an interactive aspect, which shows you that they probably have a very different outlook towards sex than us. But that's the reason why, again, we can't engage into it while not looking at them with the idea that we're dealing with a person. You can't claim that there are people or not engage with them as a people. That's the main fucking flaw here. And that's not just them, it's Rick, it's all of those pundits out there, but whatever.
I guess
Sorry. Fucking.
I was the weak little calf who couldn't swim. Like they were drafting me.
You're
Maybe
the
I should.
weird little dolphin who's not that good in the water. Not as good as them.
Yeah, and I guess with any species, you learn what their signals are and their
Exactly.
priorities, and not flailing in the water in our case or reaching out to grab them. I mean that's any etiquette really with a wild animal, I guess. But yeah, so that's what I call dolphin etiquette.
That's wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful in so many ways because they're obviously aware of you and are trying to explain to you or show you this is what you need to do if you want to hang out with us.
Yep.
Right.
And
Why
you
don't
are
they apply?
respectful.
Why don't they apply this when it comes to thinking the problem of sanctuaries, right? Like, the notion of basic decency, relationship with the others and whatnot. Why is the captive, the sanctuaries, not understood as someone to deal with in equal terms, understanding the terms and whatnot? This is part of the fucking problem. This is
Doing that, which is just great. Um, you talked about, the fact you have a very unique situation there because you've got two species, spotted dolphins and bottlenose dolphins. And you
Right.
talked about how they babysit for one another, that they form
should make a
alliances.
seaport.
Were you surprised when you first saw this kind of
Yeah.
interspecies cooperation?
Yeah, the first time I saw it, I remember the encounter. It was a large group with both species, and the water was kind of murky. So I caught some of it,
This
and I was like, "Oh my gosh, the water's so murky! I'll never see this again."
It's not that fucking surprising. It has been shown with other groups by other researchers or whatever.
I was very sad, really. Like, what is this confab of two species? But then we kept seeing it on a regular basis, and like about 15% of the time, when we see spotteds, there are bottlenose with them doing something together. So the fact that they do these social things together, I mean, even pregnant females travel together sometimes of both species. So, I guess it's you're safer knowing your neighbor and knowing who they are in case you have a problem, which they do with mutual predators sometimes. So, yeah,
Also, this is important. Shark predations on cetaceans is not that fucking big. Papers on the matter clearly show that cetaceans are on top, and there is some predation at a certain degree, but not at the rate that it tends to be fantasized by activists. I say that because when it comes to defending sanctuaries, a lot of activists have this. First, they use the shark argument, which is ridiculous for many reasons, but they tend to use those ad hoc arguments. I go over that. I'll make a special streams about pro sanctuary on pro cap because they're the same basically. Pro cap on pro sanctuary argumentaries, how to deconstruct them, the base arguments against it, epistemology, blah blah. They'll make like you go over that and you go, whatever. Why do we need nets, blah blah, etc. On immediately the whole fucking currents, they go and say, but what about sharks? What about red tides? What about fucking what about storms? What about all of this shit? The point is not to go analytically and say, well, sure, this is cool, but we need to consider that factor. So there is a rate of shark predation. We need to look at the data to see the rate of it. Blah blah. No, they don't do that. They don't engage into it analytically. They put roadblocks. Like it's like if you were a truck in a road and there was some sorry, I shouldn't use that word. There was some entity that goes and put like big fucking boulders in the middle of the road to prevent you. They try to shut off the conversation. So there is the possibility of shark attacks, so therefore there shouldn't be like cetacean liberation. Like all it's. I like to call it. I know it. Some people dislike that I use the term. I don't give a fuck because I'm Jewish. I call this the Jewish model fallacy because it's this overprotective bullshit. Everyone knows it makes no fucking sense. Like this ad hoc use, and then like obviously then you go to papers. You see like red tides are extremely like a rare phenomenon that we can more or less predict. Blah blah. But the fact that they're not reasoning in analytical terms, but rather that they will use every fucking argument in their purse in their no, it's not in the purse. It's in the bag, two in their pocket. I don't know what the expression is. In order to prevent any questioning of the sanctuary, the pro-sanctuary or pro-cap side is extremely fucking symptomatic. And also structurally, it's the same that white conservative. It's basically they think the same way the conservatives do, basically.
I think it's fascinating, and I think it's a good example of how species can get along in the wild and adjust. They overlap. They're sympatric, and they adjust their behavior. And yeah, we do suspect they have some hybrids. And
They do. They absolutely do. The hybridization between different cetacean species, well-known phenomenon in cytology, is one of the good. Also, some pro-caps on pro-sanctuaries alike don't hesitate to use the ad hoc arguments with our research, blah blah, with never showing papers, etc., of genetic pollution. It makes zero fucking sense. We know that there is a lot of genetic actions between different cetacean populations, hybridization, blah blah. Basically, the idea of genetic pollution when it comes to cetacean makes zero fucking sense. These arguments may work in very specific species like mallard dogs in Hawaii, some tritons, but when it comes to cetaceans, the data doesn't go in that direction. Basically, it just doesn't. It totally goes against the idea of I don't know what to start. I'll make a stream about it, but basically it's. It goes against everything we know about cetacean genetic dynamics on population dynamics and whatnot. It just makes no fucking sense. But it's not the point of those arguments is not to make sense. Is to shut down conversation. One of the biggest arguments used by pro sanctuaries, I know it because I interacted with those people. Believe me, for years, is yeah, but so we want to dump them in the ocean. Like. The whole point is not to engage in good faith. Is this idea that we don't want to care for them or we don't give a fuck. But they're the one that want to dump them because the whole point of them is that because what is the underlying point of like the whole dumping in the ocean argument, right? Is the idea that there should be ideally a total separation between us and them, us in a human space and them in a fantasized natural one, where the social and the political doesn't exist. So when you look at Richard O'Barry operation, Keiko, blah blah, they totally the whole point is that an ideal cetacean is a cetacean that is totally cut from the human influence. And we're totally against that. Why not? We're social beings. Why can't we like imagine societies where humans and cetaceans can share the same space, create interrelationship, interdependent relationship for 40, 50 years? Like the fact that they're stuck in the old paradigm of wilderness, blah blah, is, and again, I'm not pulling this out of my ass. The questioning of the notion of wilderness is old now. It was put forward by researchers back in the late 80s and whatnot. The fact that our activism hasn't realized this yet, right? When this is common knowledge in anthropology, ecology, I'm sorry, this is extremely symptomatic of a fundamental flaw here.
of course, this has been reported around the world for many decades by many
Oh, it does.
scientists. But because we're in the water and we've seen the cross mating and we've seen some examples, and now we can actually look at it genetically, of course, to verify. But the fact that, they really do socialize together and can have very intimate relationships and regular relationships. And one of the things, though, they really don't fight over food. They seem to
That's interesting. I suspected it, but yeah, she confirms stuff I more or less
have
knew.
different foraging niches. It's really the socializing that seems to be.
This is also interesting, right? The fact that they have social interaction, including stuff that goes into the realm of competition, even without the material need for it. This, again, this is another fucking circumstantial evidence that goes to what idea of cetacean sapiency. But the problem is that those people superficially appear to accept the notion, but don't engage into it seriously. This is also my problem with the dolphin embassy thingy with the intraterrestrial stuff I went over. Most actors, with very rare exceptions like Kenneth Levasseur, understand the notion of cetacean sapiency, but they just don't engage into it. It's like, it's nice when it's like a good, comforting theoretical term that like floats in the realm of ideas in this, in this like, what was the Platonician, where the Platonician word where the ideas, pure eidos, float in the skies and whatnot. But then when it comes to applying those fucking ideas, especially when it comes to first contact, they don't give a shit. They don't give a fuck. And again, one of the biggest issues with that, the WDC, the Wild Dolphin Conservation, and then the West Sanctuary Project, which depends on the Wild Dolphin Conservation, doesn't have a first contact program. They don't give a fuck about this. It's not as if they had some explicit program where they said, okay, we want to sanctuarize all of them, but we have some like long-term goal to try to speak to them. No, they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. The fact that even people that work in the captive fucking industry, the literally modern slavers like Sugam and Kasewitz, at least try to engage into it, but the fucking pro sanctuary side doesn't is whatever. But again, it shows you. I'll go over the different links between the captivity industry and the activism, blah blah. Go over that.
What they spend most of their time doing together.
That's really interesting because it kind of reminds me of the resource partitioning that the orchids do in the Pacific Northwest between the
Yeah,
resident
transient resident.
orchids
Okay.
and transients, where
Right.
sometimes they're sympatric, they're together, but one eats a very particular species of fish, Chinook, and the other eats mammals. And they don't have that kind of close social relationship that the guys that you study have. They kind of avoid each other and they definitely don't mate, with each other. But it is a way of working out how to live in the same area and not
Right.
fight or compete for
Right.
scarce resources.
Right.
So that's really very, very interesting that the dolphins do that as well. Do you know that what you're seeing there
Oh
at
shit.
your site, Denise, is what aspects are unique to the site or the society of dolphins that you're studying, and what are the things that others have reported elsewhere, especially in terms of interspecies interaction?
I could go over the papers. I'm curious what is going to be her response. I could easily respond to that, but like I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, they aren't studied a lot of places in the world. They're,
Yeah.
endemic to the Atlantic only. There's a study done at Venezuela. I know they've observed the two species together.
Yeah, I looked
And
into
of
it.
course,
Yeah.
our second study site, which we're spending more time at now just because of climate change displacement, which is another whole topic.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, but our first study site, we certainly saw this regular behavior I just described. Then we had a couple hurricanes hit in 2004 and 5, and we had
I don't know. A big point as well is that a lot of like cetaceans that live in the open sea make mixed species group, and they travel together in a nomadic fashion. So we will have a group with some tershops, some Lagenorhynchus, some Globicephalus, some Hourglass or porpoises or whatever the fuck, and then there are sometimes you can have orca tour shops, mix pilot tour shops, false orca tour shops. It's really fucking common. But yeah, she's right on the paper, whatever. It's
pretty
not
big
important.
losses of both species. And all of a sudden, we weren't seeing any interaction between the species. Their behavior was completely destabilized for about 4 years until they got normalized again.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
So yeah, so that had a big impact on their social behavior. And then in the second study site, when we started going down there and watching, we'd been down there some in the winters, but in the summers now we go down there more so, and they do interact down there as well. So I think it's just the ecology allows a certain amount of spotted and bottlenose to use the habitat as long as they eat
Which
differently in different locations.
I
in
was
different
talking to.
species. I mean, there's some overlap. So for example, the spotteds, they go offshore at night off this deep water edge of the shallow sandbank, and they are hunting flying fish and squid all night, basically. And we've never seen a bottlenose out there at night, ever, ever. Yeah, the bottlenose eating the grass beds. They're digging out deep eel. Yeah, so they definitely separate their feeding a lot.
And have you seen you've seen hybrids? Are they reproductively
I know they are, but
viable?
yeah.
Or
Well, we don't know yet. We have visual suspicions of hybrid.
Yeah, they probably do. An interesting aspect of a lot of cetaceans, Uh, Basically, interestingly, we found not only hybrids between members of different cetacean genus, but from the same family, basically. Different genus from the same family, but hybrids that were viable over several generations, notably the so-called wolfin or beluga narval hybrids. No, you won't have like a fucking sperm whale true shaft hybrid, but like it's interesting though. Some animal groups are like that. I believe gallinads or fucking you can have like viable hybrid pheasants, chicken hybrid stuff like that, whatever. It's not.
Hybrids, and we're still
Yeah.
trying to work out the genetic
Yeah.
process protocols to verify it, but yeah, it's probably more common than we think, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's talk about climate change because that's obviously something that we're all experiencing right now. And unfortunately, so many species and groups of animals are feeling the effects and having to change their behavior because of it. What have you seen in the society that you've been studying?
Well, besides the hurricanes I just mentioned, where we lost
Yeah.
about 30% of those species, just in
Wow.
2013, not
I
so long.
I wonder why. I know that's an argument that tends to be used by the pro sanctuary when it comes to like storms and shit. But I'm curious about. First, I've seen good data that cetaceans know how to avoid storms and shit. But I'm curious why this hurricane specifically, how it managed to kill them. Like, was this like through some kind of like stranding event, or I'm curious about this.
Ago.
If they were side factors due to overfishing, stuff like that.
Um, basically, half of our resident spotted dolphins that we've been studying for 28 years suddenly moved 100 miles away. They crossed deep water to the next sandbank, which is now another study site of ours on a regular basis. And we started wondering what was going on. Like, why would a group of resident dolphins who had this beautiful life, remote, no people, just fish and pretty water,
I mean, there are people. But...
why would they move? And we started getting some data from NOAA. So we started looking at chlorophyll levels, basically, from satellite imagery. And it was pretty clear after looking at different onshore, offshore places that the chlorophyll level, which is a proxy for plankton, right, which again goes up the food chain, had just crashed, right where the dolphins were living. So our best guess is that the food chain crashed. We kind of noticed it anecdotally, but we didn't have any good measures of it. We noticed we'd go out at night to watch them feed at night, and there wouldn't be any prey. It was like, where's all the flying fish and squid? So something crashed. We don't know why. Either nutrients or changes in wind direction. We're not sure. Unfortunately, it looks like that's happening all over the Bahamas now. We've looked at some recent data, and it doesn't look good again. So, these animals are being pressured for the one thing they really need, which is food.
This is not interesting. This is
so
no mistake on
the food. The reason they've been resident probably is they live on the sandbank and they have resources that don't migrate, like fish along the east coast of Florida, for example. The dolphins probably follow these fish schools. In the Bahamas, the grocery store was there all the time, and so they could stay resident. So this
is also the case of the population I'm studying in the Isle of Seine in France. But
one group of dolphins into another resident group of dolphins. So now they have to figure out that dance, right? Like, how do you
exactly
share resources when a bunch of dolphins move in, right? So we've been also monitoring that. It's interesting.
The domino effect, in some sense, right? Because you have effects that immediate and then way down over there, because of all these links.
Yeah. It's pressuring animals to move closer, between groups, not just dolphins. I think a lot of animals probably, right? So yeah, what we've done with the climate's pretty bad.
Yeah, and we need to do something about that, for sure. But of course, we don't quite know.
I mean, again, what can I say? The notion of animal, when it is applies to cetaceans, obviously they are animals from a biological point of view. We are blah blah blah. The problem is that from a social point of view, if we are to accept the idea of cetacean sapiency, the notion of animal as we use it colloquially cannot really be applied. Again, this is not a neat poll thing. It's not applying woke language to like a niche aspect which is not necessarily like exploited by other people online. The point is that very concretely, if we understand them as like animal or wild animal or domesticated animal or like living in a wilderness or whatnot, we miss part of the problem, we contradict ourselves, and we end not only with a discourse, but with practices which go against their fucking interests. Sanctuary are a good are a good instance of that. We end not only with literally a recycling of the old dolphinarium industry, right? Slavery with extra steps, but we also end with a state of thing where the overall environment is understood as a terra nullius that we can continue to exploit, continue to manage under all of the governmental and corporative systems and plans that we have today in terms of overfishing, mineral exploitation, pollution, and whatnot. I'm sorry, but the fact that there's an entire people out there has like concrete ethical implications that should lead them toward a certain number of practices and claims. And this is not it. This is not it. The fact that even John C. fucking Lilly back in the 70s realized some of it, but the people 50 years after aren't capable of realizing this shit. I'm sorry. This is why I wish I could like debate some of them. I don't think I managed to debate fucking Marino, but like, I don't know. I try to bait some people I know from the field that I disagree with me. We'll see how I fare, right?
What to do, but something has to be done
Shit,
drastically and
25. I'll
quickly.
never make it.
Because as you said,
need
these animals
cells.
are being impacted all the time, and the impacts just reverberate throughout the ecosystems and go further and further out. And so you don't always know the full impact, right, of the effects of
Well-
climate change or anything, noise pollution, chemical pollution. It's just like circular rings that go out from there.
And honestly, Lori, I think it's an extra challenge because look how hard it is to do long-term research,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, long-term research, 30 years to reach like basic conclusions that were reached by other researchers before that to create an extremely flawed system, which is the... Okay, let me explain why this chat system is bullshit. So basically, I know that it's kind of cryptic. She makes some machine that basically links four signs with four whistles, knowing that those whistles are A, synthetic, not produced by the human voice, B, monotonous, like this, and three, way before under the hearing maximum hearing frequency limit. So I don't know, 50 kilohertz, some shit like that. And then those choose four sounds associated to those four symbols were associated to four objects that were like toys, basically. I think it was like an LG, a scarf and shit, including one of the objects, a scarf, which is an object that outside of the normal use and understanding of cetaceans. It's, and not only they did that shit, that what, it confirms what Lou fucking Herman like showed like 10 years before. But not only that, but they use the same system since 20 years. 20 years, no, more than that, because I think they started back in the late 80s. And then, no, they're using that bigger system and transferring it into a smaller system like handheld computers and shit. But it's the same thing. There is no possibility for the other to engage into a dialogue. They could have tried to use some kind of lexicographic system like the Bonobo Kanzi and shit to try to engage into a dialogue. It would have been an overly complex system that probably wouldn't amount to much, but at least in theory, the hearing system from a structural point of view with like symbols and shit can go towards some kind of two-way communication, but they don't give the tools for them to engage in two-way communication. It's amazing. Herman It was the same problem with Lou Herman's work. If I had to give an illustration of how fucked this is basically like shooting yourself in the foot for 30 years, which is is. Did you watch that Black Mirror episode called Black Museum, I believe, where basically they put the soul of a woman into like a toy a monkey, and basically she cannot communicate with the outside world, so the only way she has to communicate with her own child is by yes or no, which is what incidentally what Herman did with his captive dolphins. But not only that, but instead of saying yes or no, the yes was monkey, monkey loves you, and the no was monkey wants a hug. Okay, this episode is the epitome, the best fucking illustration I have to show how idiotic the whole system put up by Herzing on Herman are. And I think it also describes other projects, but
It's challenging with time, with money, and imagine what we're missing. I mean, we're one of the best places to watch dolphins.
what we're missing. I mean, she created a system that amounts to fucking nothing. I mean, I know that it's probably supposed to confirm some of the results shown in laboratory in terms of how they associate certain symbols to certain concepts. But like, really, this shit for 30 years, what do they do? What are they doing since 30 years? I don't understand. And I have the same criticism when it comes to like Sugar Man and whatnot, because those people also have been working a cetacean population held captive for like sometimes more than 30 years. What, confirming the same results over and over? Again, I don't understand. We could be wrong on our assessment of like cetacean communication. It's probably that we fail. I don't think so. I think the data goes in our direction. The simple frequency translocation is the simplest solution to our first contact. But I'm open-minded, I could be wrong. But like the fact that they're not trying a simpler system on incrementally go up, or at least trying to collaborate with each other, cross their results, is wild to me. This is a methodological train wreck. It's a Hinderburg of methodology on heuristics. I don't know where to fucking start. But again, I go over that. She will probably talk about the CHT system. You will see how, whatever.
In the world, and
Exactly.
we are out there for 8 months of the year. We don't know what goes on in the, we miss all this stuff, even though we have good data and good baseline. And so imagine that happening all around the world. It's just
Exactly.
so frustrating.
It's very frustrating, and we talk.
You know what's frustrating? Frustrating is what you have your engineer starting to build to work on your devices, and then COVID delays the shipping of um, the key elements of your device, and you have to continue to wait like an idiot because of fucking COVID. That also incidentally prevents you from making your field work in anthropology. Not only that, you know what's frustrating? 50 years of fucking idiotic scientists wanking themselves, creating useful, uh, 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 usefully contrived systems in order to, instead of making proper first contact. That's the frustrating part. Oh my god! But you will understand that when I will start showing you the other projects. I'll probably go over Sogaman on Cassiwaits notably, Kuya as well.
talk about, cultures and cultures being lost before we even come to know them.
Yep, they're people of culture, but they're white animals. Go figures.
Right.
And so, when you lose a group of dolphins in the Bahamas that you study, it doesn't matter that there are other members of that species elsewhere.
Right.
That group, that's a specific society with their specific cultural tradition.
Exactly.
If
So why are you not engaging into it properly by recognizing the importance of culture and society? Okay, when it comes to the ethical implication of all of this, we are not talking about the implication of society and culture when it comes to your World Sanctuary project, or when it comes to first contact, or when it comes to engaging into them culturally, or when it comes to talking of them in your studies and shit. It's I should probably go over that. This is I also put this into the stream. Yeah. No. Yeah.
they go that whole thing goes.
Yeah, it's much like humans, right?
Yeah,
Tribes and
exactly.
cultures, and even like with early whaling, right? Imagine what families were wiped out. I mean, when you start thinking about that, you realize it's the equivalent of genocide. It
Of
really is
course. Yeah.
cultural genocide with these non-humans.
If you can understand this as an understanding of genocide, why can't you understand what you're doing with the sanctuaries and shit, at least as an analog of institutionalization? I know Michel Foucault became a big fucking meme in the leftist community, but if you understand Michel Foucault, you understand the dolphinarium industry. I went over that in other streams, but the way sanctuaries, not only cetacean sanctuaries as well, apes and elephant sanctuaries in particular, function through space division, schedule, the violent, forcefully managing the way individuals move into certain spaces at certain moments. For instance, when chimpanzees in fucking big chimp sanctuaries, um, at some point all of them have to go into their respective compounds from the main area. It's like a fucking mental asylum. It's the same fucking shit. It's the same fucking layout. I mean, that you want it or not, it is the case. Like, if you understand Foucault, you understand this shit. You don't have to be a fucking genius to understand that. Those people are not talking about this. When they talk about sanctuaries, they never talk about the problem of space division, training, blah, blah, because they know that if they talked about it explicitly, they would show explicitly part of the structural fundamental issues with not only the sanctuary system, but also the dolphinarium industry and the captive system as a whole. When it comes to criticizing dolphinariums, they do criticize them, obviously, for everything that has to do with stress, the destruction of their societies, how cetaceans become violent because of that, the death of cetaceans due to many illnesses due to stress, suicide, blah, blah, all of this, obviously. But then they never talk about space division, institutionalization, blah, blah, because they know that if they will do that, I mean, I don't know if they know that consciously, but like the obfuscation of those specific points are not innocent. That's my point. It's not as if I could go to a Marino and suggest them that and they would like that. Those people have a program, those people have an agenda, those people just want to maintain a certain status quo. It's extremely unfortunate because those people were my allies, but unfortunately they wanted to shit on me, on a few other people, are the only people trying to analytically understand the problem, to try to use other tools from academia to try to understand that issue, and to try to point out a certain number of contradictions from our own activism, which are, I'm sorry to say it, the same that the one that protect the dolphin industry. They're the fucking same. And then obviously there's the fact that part of the sanctuary process are collaborating with elements of the dolphin industry. But I go over that as well.
And I know it's really
Shit, they
unbelievable.
will probably, yeah.
Well, let's talk about talking or communication.
Yep, okay,
Because
this is the important
some of
part.
the most interesting work.
This is probably the part where we get triggered on yell a lot. Like fucking Hassan, like this is the part. This is the part you should fucking watch.
Has to do with trying to decode, if you will, the communication system.
Yep. This is where I don't agree. This is I've talked about it earlier, but basically this obsession, Herzing is less in that side of things. But this obsession by a number of people that research the problem of cetacean first contact with cracking the code, like if it was fucking Alan Turing Enigma, is one of the fundamental methodological flaws of that fucking issue. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. It's so convenient because then you go and you move the goalpost, like, oh, we didn't manage to totally understand the 3D system, therefore we're not going to talk to them. Oh, but we didn't manage to totally understand like the subtleties of. No, I don't give a fuck about this. Why not creating a middle language, a pidgin? This was put forward by Janus. Even Herzing talks about that, the problem of middle language. Again, why are they not trying simple frequency translocation? It is basically what is done by those machines that the military use for diving to surface diver communication. I'm sorry, I'm not claiming, I'm not being like big brain, because here's the thing absolutely for project. It would be very easy to go and say like, we all of the other idiots since the last 70 years are wrong. We're the one that are right here because we have that solution. It's not really that. It's that when you review analytically the methodology of every fucking project out there, it is clear that there are strong methodological flaws with the way they engage into it. Over complexification, refusal of intercollaboration, all of this. But the fact that they didn't try simple frequency translocation and then jumping to a more complex system is I cannot understand it. It's wild to me. It's basically for me it's science fiction. I don't get it.
Of spotted dolphins and bottlenose dolphins. And I know that you have been engaged in some work with Georgia Tech using machine learning to try to ask the question, is this a language? You talked about that in your presentation. Can you say a little bit more about
Again, we have whatever. I won't go
what are
over
the
it.
kinds of things that you're looking for that would tell you that
Again, they don't engage into it seriously. They just don't engage into it seriously. They muse with it. They muse with it for decades, but they don't engage seriously into it. There are very few people in our activism that do. Kenneth Levasseur is probably one of them, but like they just don't. They just don't. They just don't take seriously the fucking problem. For them, it's just another topic, a nice topic to discuss it in a mundane setting, and that's it. They don't engage into it seriously. They just don't.
oh, okay, this is something like a language.
Well, I could show you a few diagrams
Sure.
if you like. We'll try the screen
That'd be
sharing
great.
again. Stand by. see how quick we can get it up this time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, tell me when
Okay,
you
we see that. We see that.
Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah, so the way
I wasn't aware of that. This is interesting. At least it shows that there is some tentative to like divide things, trying to systematize them. I don't agree with this necessarily, but whatever. It's at least it's something. That's it. I'm not the fucking CHA system, which fucking you see
way
that.
we're approaching it is to use the machine learning, various types of machine learning, to have the computer help us cluster sound types, right? So the way human speech works is we have phonemes, and then we have morphemes, but we have units of information that we recombine to make words and sentences and so forth. So what we're trying to do is look at these clusters. This is just it's an old example from Thad Starner's PhD student, Daniel Kohlsdorf, who I work with very closely now. And his program basically helps us cluster, F looks like this and I looks like this and so forth. And then what we're trying to do is look at, do these parts form patterns? Is there a sequence? Is ALE always found together from these clusters? So we're looking for kind of the smallest units of information. And then what we're really trying to do is say, okay,
Again, don't you think extremely interesting how they do all of this shit, but they don't engage socially with them, with the cetaceans there? Or at least they engage into it in an extremely limited way that doesn't allow for genuine interpersonal relationship. Like some people do with some solitaries, by the way, like Frédéric Pichard, even people like Dimay, which I don't agree with everything. Like, there's a bunch of people that unfortunately tend toward the whole new agey shit or whatnot. Like, again, Pichard is a good instance. But like, at least they have like genuine interpersonal relationship with them. That was the case of people like Jump Plug or whatnot. Those people are in a stage. Imagine a bunch of aliens, right, that will pick up random sounds from a human group, but will refuse any form of like. Imagine if instead of having anthropology like Malinowski, Margaret Mead, okay, they're old school, but you know what I mean. We had a bunch of white people hanging next to a fucking village, and then with a micro bang like that. Oh, I heard that phone. This is ridiculous. There is this systematic refusal, and we have concrete counter instances, examples out there of interpersonal relationship between human and cetacean that clearly show that no, having proper interpersonal relationship with them doesn't pollute them, it doesn't alter the society in a dangerous way. I'm sorry, if anything, what does this is systemic anthropogenic activity, overfishing, blah blah, not one person. And again, the problem is that those people, they it's very convenient to have the theory, right? Personhood, culture, blah blah. But then, if this doesn't have an effective wave when it comes to engaging with them, it's useless. It's just useless. They could be talking about them in behaviorist terms, talking about them like a black box, operant conditioning, blah blah. It would be the fucking same. Okay, like
So every language has structure and order, and behavioral vocalizations could also have some kind of order. But this is the first attempt to look for structure. So we're looking for rules and patterns. So for example, if sound type A always shows up before B or C, this is actually a rule or a formula, followed by A, followed by anything, A to Z, et cetera, et cetera. This becomes a rule. And maybe we find these two rules, as you see in the bottom square here, B, G, B, B, etc. This would be equivalent of either words or phonemes. And then we're going to take our metadata, which.
By the way, as far as as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong on this, but I've looked a lot on the work of Harzing. As far as I'm aware, she never tried, for instance, to take those individual sounds and send them to them and see the response, trying to build a basic action with that. She's stuck to the chat system since the late 90s. The late 90s, my God, I was a fucking kid back then. I can't. This is oh my God. I'm sorry. I just go mad over it because I'm extremely well aware of that problematic, and I see the same fucking patterns. It's
for us means that
in a way I'm an anthropologist of these people.
At types of behavioral contexts that are happening, what individual dolphins are there, and see if there are patterns that would suggest that this represents some kind of language. Now, it's still going to be hard to look at in the sense of how do you really determine if you had a sequence of sounds that it meant anything besides, I have to stop sharing here, that it meant anything besides, hey, come over, there's fish, or, there's a fish under the sand here, right?
I mean, even if it was the case, it would be still enormous. As far as I'm aware, chimps can do this. Chimps have some form of indirect communication with like they like a twig, or you're supposed to know that this broken twig means go in that direction. But as far as I'm aware, they don't have a direct form of communication. But by the way, some birds and even small monkey species have. But even then, it will be fucking big. The fact, again, the fact that they don't directly engage into it is extremely fucking symptomatic. Those people, like, again, I'm sorry, I repeat myself, but like, this is so damning to me. This is so fucking sad. Those people have the wealth, the material capability, and the intellectual capability to seriously engage into it, and they just don't do it. None of the current actors in the world citation field, and there's dozens of them, do it seriously. We're the only one that do. They were the only one. Me on my fucking group. Me, Russell, Andrew, and whatnot.
So.
By the way, what I will do is if I receive results for my interaction with Randy on the prototypes, everything will be for free. I publish everything on the main groups. I publish every video, every recording, every raw data, fucking everything. And the whole point is, if you disagree with my methodology, please tell me. If you have another interpretations of what we received, please tell us. If you want to go, obviously not everyone can do it, but like if someone wants to go to the island and wants to verify what we do by using the machine themselves, or like using them with this subject or other subject in order to confirm our methodology or whatnot, they should be please do it. Like, we want confirmation of our results. And most importantly, one of the things that we want to do is for everyone to be able to have access to the data, like to the machines. Like, for instance, in theory, it's like a fucking box with like, like a megaphone. So the point is, if Randy like echolocates into the fucking hydrophone and sound comes out of the not the megaphone, the haut-parleur, the thingy that's the sounds comes out, everyone can hear it, not just me with my headphones, everyone. That's also part of like whatever. But the point is, we need a democratization of first contact, okay? Not just some elitist scientists, not just some fucking new agey medium that believe they have some whatever. Again, some people that believe in the whole cetacean telepathy thing are not grifters. I know because I know some of them personally that really believe that they do have some kind of contact. So I don't want to go there and tell them that it's all bullshit, blah blah. But we can't go in that direction. We just can't. I cannot verify that this is true. Okay, I just can't. I can't verify it empirically. And most importantly, what if some idiot medium blah blah goes and says, "Oh, the dolphin told me that they want to be in captivity. The dolphin told me that they like to be like fucking exploited." This can happen. I'm sorry. There were de facto connivences between some of those New Ager, not all of them, not all of them, by the way, not all of them, but some of those New Ager people, as at least in a certain, at least in the 80s, 90s, were in connivence with some parts of the dolphinarium industry. Like they just were. So like, you know,
Really, we might eventually have to do playback if we ever find order and structure to these sounds. So that might be the way we have to really verify if we.
yeah, playback. Why are they not doing that in 30 years? Why are they not testing that? What is their justification? They never justify this, by the way. They never do. Not just them, as in Herzing's team. All of these motherfuckers like Kasewitz, Kuyai, Sugab, none of them do this shit. None of them.
We play back a sequences of sounds in a certain context to see how the animals react. Um, it's probably the only way to really test a language like
Why don't you do it?
Because you could have all the data you want and order and
do it. Do it. Why? Why is there God? Is this fucking Jesus Christ that just went there with his fucking sword and was like, "You shall not fucking play back the sound of the dolphin"? The fuck are we talking about? Those people, do you realize this? Those people are fucking trolling us. They know there's a problem, but they don't act upon it. It's trolling. Those people know there's a methodological flaw, or they're not acting upon it. They're extremely well conscious of these problems. It's neuroticism. This is basically like fucking incels or neckbirds that want to speak to a woman and then they like beat around the bush and shit. It's the same fucking shit. I swear to fucking God.
What does it really mean to the animals, right? So the,
Right,
the thing
the
with
meaning.
language, yeah, meaning. So when a dolphin is echolocating in the sand and the other dolphin is hearing it, is that dolphin hearing just the echoes of the fish underneath the sand, or are they talking about what they had for dinner last night?
I mean, it could be both. It could be like whatever. This is not important.
We don't know. And that's a
Exactly.
big feature of language, right? That we
Yeah, that's
can
whatever.
abstract and talk about what we did yesterday or plan ahead. That's the big question, right? That's a big aspect.
That's the
First, it's not that much of a question. The first thing first. If you know kind of the deep lore of the whole cetacean thingy, you may know that there's a theory that sometimes is put forward by some intellectuals, put forward by the anthropologist Gregory Bateson. Bateson, which worked in the Lilly laboratory back in 66, 67, believed that cetacean language didn't refer to objects, that basically they were incapable of referring to objects, but referred only to basic social situation, contextual social situation. This is utter bullshit. Herman proved it that it's not the case. Every fucking circumstantial evidence out there when it comes to both captive and my God, free cetaceans show that it's not the case. It's just not. So we know that it must refer to objects. We have experiments where, for instance, we isolated two cetaceans in two different tanks on cetaceans managed to we were saying to each other, but while being able to communicate acoustically, they conveyed information about the specific objects, like a fish, insect tank, or whatnot. Like this, it just we know that they refer to. Secondly, again, and if why this obsession for cracking the code? I don't give a fuck about this Alan Turing ass bullshit. The fact that they don't even talk about a pidgin lingua franca system is damning. I'm sorry.
$6 million question.
Right,
$6 million,
exactly. So,
Okay.
we are developing a program. We hope
Yeah,
that will be a
the
user
CH
interface for other scientists.
Yes, CHA system, the thing that you developed since what, 98, even before? Oh, sorry, I get triggered by this shit, but like, if you're familiar with that field, you know why I'm fucking frustrated by all of this fucking shit. Like,
To put their data sets into, so we can help them cluster their sounds and look for a
Mm-hmm.
structure. And who knows, maybe there's some universal features to, all these
So
languages
basically,
that.
that's it. They just want to look at universal features, just analytically look at shit and never interact with cetaceans directly. It's amazing. Those people talk about the problem, but they don't engage into it. Do you realize how insane this is? This is basically the definition of insanity. Oh, this is not just Harsing. Again, this is all of them. All of them. Even extremely smart people like Norman and shit, which I prefer from a conceptual point of view, unfortunately, fall into the same pitfall. I wish I could like have Norman on stream, but I tried to engage with him and he never responded. Like, again, my wish is that my hope is that my work will like basically unlock all of this shit. This is basically the negation of interpersonal relation, basically. Even people that engage with them in a more interpersonal way, like Pichard, like Jean-Plug or whatnot, again, there are limitations here. Like,
May exist,
how can we have a proper interpersonal relation without language? And I know what you're going to say. Yes, there are human beings, blah, blah, that cannot, like, communicate properly. All of this, okay. But language is the structure of society. Language, that you want it or not, like, is the cement of interpersonal relation in the more. We just need it. We need it for claims. We need it to have their experiences. We need to know about their culture. We just need it. Not for us, for them. If we want to help them properly, we need this fucking first contact. Those people are toying with it with a fucking cat that toys with our mouths. It's.
Wouldn't that be cool to find?
That would
That,
be
that's
incredible.
that would be cool to find, yeah. That's cool. It's not like there's some urgent ethical matter, or you just talked about the danger of global warming and population disappearing.
Yeah, they're great tools. Honestly, I've been waiting my whole life for these tools.
That I
So,
mean, it really is. I mean, what you
Then why don't you play back the sounds? I don't believe that this is the ideal system. I think, like, again, directly talking to a MIG frequency translocation is the solution. But the fact that they're not even they making a hypothetical system that they personally know it could work, or they're not engaging into it, is wild to me. This
can
is
do now with machine learning, AI, big data, all that stuff is just phenomenal because
they say big data and imagine like data, but data from Star Trek, the new generation, but like tremendous tools, whatever.
it allows you to see things that our brains can't see.
right, right. But it's harder than people understand. It's not like you magically get an answer out of the computer. There's the
Right,
times you have
exactly.
No,
to
because obviously
supervise the
interpretation.
process,
Yeah.
Very
which
hard.
you inject your expertise. Other times it's unsupervised. You throw it all in and see what comes out. So boy, it's a process. But we learn as we go.
Yes.
That's what science does too.
Why?
So is this something that you think is the kind of approach we can take when we have beluga whales in a sanctuary?
Oh my god. Okay. She's basically posing the question, which is extremely fucking fundamental. I didn't expect them to talk about it, but this is crucial because if they respond to it, shows that will either show that they have some ersatz of good faith, or if they're just pieces of shit. Like just it.
For instance. So you know that we have, we're building a sanctuary on the eastern shore of Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
With hoping to have several beluga whales there, maybe some orcas as well. And so one of the things that we need to understand is how is their communication changing as they adapt to the new environment?
Right.
What?
And
What are you meaning by it? I thought you were trying to. Oh my god. So she deflects into a total. I thought she was trying to talk about the application of this machine to talk to them. I can't believe this shit. Am I being idiotic? I know I have Asperger's syndrome, but have I misinterpreted her initial sentence? Like,
I wonder if some of the techniques you're using could be applied in that way.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I understand machine learning, because I'm on a learning curve too. Yeah, I think if you had baseline of those
Yeah.
belugas or before, you could absolutely throw those data sets in. And
do you imagine? Do you realize this? That's it. They basically talk about analyzing whatever sound they make, which is dumb. Like, it's not trying to engage with them. No. Analyzing the sound. basically making the kind of research that, it's so wild. Those people have been denouncing captive research for 30 years, but they don't want to make de facto captive research. Do you realize it? Like, it's wild to me. This is the definition of insanity. I wish I could debate those motherfuckers.
You would, if there's a difference, you would see it rather quickly. I mean, it'd be markedly
Also, we know
obvious.
that because there are Belugas basically have a quite rich communication system. This was I showed that when I reviewed. I didn't put it online yet. Basically, I reviewed the Jim Norman website. He talks about it. Um, Communication with belugas have some interesting implications because it could, in theory, be more useful. It will be easier because it seems that the structure of the melon and shit first allow for easier communication outside of the water, but also they appear to be excellent mimics of human speech, what tertiaries aren't, because of NOC, the beluga, and whatnot. But I'll go over NOC, the beluga, and basically, in theory, belugas could be better drugmans, if you will. They will be better interprets. Um, they will be better. The communication with belugas could be easier with frequency translocation than with tertiaries. In theory, perhaps belugas could be used as drugmans. You know, perhaps you could have a beluga that, in their own will, would want to like work as an interpret between cetacean populations and us. We don't know that, but these people don't give a fuck about this shit. They're like 5 level removed from that kind of speculation.
This, I mean, the details they have to be flushed out, perhaps, or if they're, exchanging types of signals they didn't before. But yeah, you would definitely see changes. What they mean is the mystery, right? But
Mystery.
Exactly. Well, we have a lot of questions coming up, but we can't not talk about dolphin personhood.
Okay,
Um,
this is important because I have big, basically, my contention. First, personhood, like the use of the brain argument, is this kind of like concept which is used all the fucking time. On the oh fuck, there is an expression of it for it. Until sickness, ad nauseam, ad nauseam. It's used ad nauseam by our activism to show off what appears superficially as a progressivist take on the problem. But basically, they ignore key problems which allow for a regressive take to just creep in. The problem with personhood is that it's just not enough. De facto, in obviously, morally, personhood and property are not compatible, right? Obviously. But in law, or you know this if you study business, you have objects, inanimate things, which are owned by states, owned by people, owned by companies, which are understood as persons, like trees, like bridges, like mountains. Secondly, you have a very interesting notion called corporate personhood. Certain corporations are understood as being legal persons for a pragmatic reason relating to the way they function. Does it mean that fucking corporations are self-aware entities with their own autonomy? No, obviously someone owns the fucking corporation, right? But they're understood as person under law for reasons that complex reasons that I don't totally understand. They have to do with the way they function, blah blah. But basically, personhood and property are in law perfectly fucking compatible. And when the non-human right projects go with their fucking chimp on their fucking elephant and they go, oh yeah, we give personhood, blah blah, it's so progressive. What do? They give personhood, so they go into a sanctuary. Or what are sanctuaries? Like every captive system, they just the ownership of a non-human. Like you can advocate for sanctuaries, okay? You can use all of the arguments you want, but one of the things that I never talk about, which is absolutely key, is that sanctuarized non-humans are the property of people or specific entities like companies or organizations or whatever the fuck. On paper, if I went to the Beluga sanctuary in Iceland and I took the fucking whale and fucked off, it would be understood as property theft, okay? That's just it. They are property. Those elephants and chimps that became persons were transferred to a sanctuary are understood as property under this sanctuary. So this whole talk about personhood is sterile if there is no reflection about the notion of property, about the construction of the notion of wilderness, about all of this fucking discourse. It's just a sterile discourse. That's it.
because this is something that has been an idea that has been around for a while. Philosopher Tom White.
Tom White is a retard. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Tom White. No, I shouldn't use that word. Okay, let me reformulate this because I just got heated. Thomas White is a business philosopher. Okay, I stress this out for reasons that will be explicit after. That wrote back in 2007 a book called I believe okay called In Defense of Dolphins, that summarizes. Basically, he claims that he made 15 years of research, blah blah. He makes, I have to admit, a quite good summary, a synthesis of the whole basic NPC take of for anti-cap activism on the world situation thingy. As a philosopher, and this is, I believe, the job of a philosopher, what he should do is take a concept, take a notion, and deconstruct it. Okay, we use the notion of personhood, but are we sure that this is the good notion to understand the problem? Okay, we say sanctuaries are a good thing. Are we sure that there aren't problems with sanctuaries as the fact that captivity, blah blah? Never. I haven't finished the fucking book yet, but clearly he never questioned those things. The most damning problem was with personhood. This guy talks about the notion of personhood for, I don't know, 10 or 15 fucking paragraphs. Philosopher of business, he never talks about the notion of corporate personhood. Never. It's wild to me that someone, a philosopher, analyzes from an outside point of view the whole discourse of our activism, on never try to question sanctuaries, never try to question a notion of personhood, on never try to question the view of the brain. Because again, multiple realizability, Hillary fucking Putnam, the notion, the understanding, like there is a problem with the use of the brain as an epistemological tool. There just is. We cannot use the brain as an absolute epistemological tool over behavior. We just can't. We know de facto, and this has been shown by studies with octopi, with studies on birds, that different structures of the brain, different neurological organization, whatnot, can make the same results in terms of cognition or language or emotion or whatever. This is a big fucking issue. And they never talks about the problem of multiple realizability. They never fucking do. I'll go over, I'll finish the book, and maybe I'm wrong on this. It's possible that he went over some important shit. But I'll finish the book, I'll make a stream where I show you highlights of the book, because I really want you to show that, because Thomas White is the exemplification of, I'm sorry to use that word, no, I won't use that word, no, because blind is also ablaze. What is that term I call you, which is an ablaze, okay? This is basically like getting the data or not processing it, basically. I just don't get it. I just don't get why a trained philosopher isn't capable of taking a notion on deconstruct. I just don't get it. I just don't. Like, again, this is why I don't. The book, Justin Gregg book was bad, but at least Justin Gregg made an effort to deconstruct, analyze the main takes of her activism. And this, again, I say the same thing as Slavoj Zizek says with like Peter Sloterdijk. I prefer 10,000 light years more, okay? An intelligent conservative than a dumb progressive. 100%, okay? 100 fucking percent.
And you and I have co-authored papers where we talk about personhood.
Also, those people handle philosophy like a child handles a fucking grenade. I have no qualms in saying that. I can prove this. A plus B. Those people are take extremely fucking totally important ethical issues like personhood, brain epistemology, captivity, the notion of wilderness, all of this shit, and they just play with it like a fucking child plays with a fucking Glock. It's amazing. I can't fucking believe this shit.
Obviously, there's a legal side to it.
Yep.
What the Non-Human Rights Project is doing, and common law definition of personhood, but it really comes down to knowing whether or not these animals have some of the characteristics.
No, this is not the problem. Personhood is perfectly compatible with property. We know them. We know they're sapient. That's not the problem. I mean, my God, slavery in the United States was a good instance of an institution where human beings, I mean, they were everyone knew they were human, blah, blah, were simultaneously understood as persons and property. Like, I'm sorry, like, those notions under law are incompatible. The fact that they're incapable of engaging with it, they know there are problems, they don't engage into them.
People
They just don't. They don't give a
are
fuck.
humans, right? That's not what personhood means. But do they have
What?
some
What?
of the characteristics that you and I have?
I mean, okay, it's not that personhood means. It's that personhood in its moral sense tend to encompass. It depends because it also harks back to like the way like anti-abortion people use the notion of personhood, blah blah. But like the notion of personhood from a moral point of view tends to like uses those characteristics. But I'm sorry, again, the law on morals are distinct. They are distinct. They don't play out in the same ballpark. The fact that they're incapable, whatever.
That make us persons. What do you think?
Well, I mean, they're alive, they're aware, they have emotions, they have a sense of self. We know that from your work, for example, and others.
This is not exact. I know what she's referring to. She's not only referring to the brain work, she's referring to her earlier work with Dying Rice on mirrors and shit. But like the mirror experiment, I'm pretty sure that were done before Rice and everything work. I'm extremely sure of that. And secondly, circumstantial, there is extensive circumstantial evidence of it, like whatever, from behavior and shit, like whatever. I
Uh,
won't go over it. This is I'll make a stream of epistemology.
we know they have very complex cognitive abilities, and those are really the short list of what a person is, right? I mean,
Really? Is it that? No, it's not. Because one of the problems with this reasoning is that, what about it? This is a bit tony, but this is extremely fucking important. Like, this is God fucking, this is Thanos style important. Uh, One thing is like internal characteristics, potential characteristics of a given species or individual or whatnot, like, ooh, they can be self-aware, blah, blah. The other is between individuals, they will create a network, a society, an abstract system. There is an in there or an out there that we build collectively. Do we judge humans because they have the possibility of self-awareness, or do we judge humans as effective elements in a network, a society, a system? No, we judge humans as parts of a dynamic society, not as because of themselves. When, for instance, let me show you an instance. You like a Trekkie like me. The episode when they discuss the personhood of data. It's not just who data has the capacity of self-awareness. No, it's what are the factual social implications of having someone like data in a given human society and how they will interact in that society. That's the thing. It's not just cetacean are self-aware. It's that they de facto have dynamic societies we can interact with that have a take on their environments, blah blah. This is the point. This monadistic essentialist take over cetaceans is one of the biggest fucking flaws when it comes to understanding the problem.
we're not going to show up at the November 3rd election. People mistake personhood for voting rights or something.
Yeah, this is. I know this has been put forward by Thomas White on the Helsinki Convention, blah blah, all this fucking shit. First, we don't know what will happen. We have no idea. If first contact works out, we have no fucking idea what could happen in 50 years. We could have a development of a brain-computer interface technology that will allow cetaceans to have like artificial arms and whatnot. There could be future form, unfortunately, of exploitation by big companies using them as like some kind of like field workers and shit for oil platforms. We have no idea. So cetaceans could way more participate in human societies than we imagine. Whatever. Obviously they're right in theory. Like the point isn't really that dolphins could vote. It's more like recognizing them having special rights and whatnot. But again, another thing. Oh, this is so fucking important. The fact that they never talk about the implication when it comes to that, when it comes to our understanding of the oceans as a human-owned space, like the exploitation of the seafood for, oh, excuse me, polymetallic nodules, the mass overfishing. They never talk about it. Never, never. Because the person who has implication when it comes to territory, the map on the territory, they never talk about this shit. Never. Absolutely never.
something, right? But like
Right,
you said,
exactly,
you know,
exactly.
This is, you know
person,
what those people do? Not just them, like the whole fucking Cetacean, LARPing. LARPing it's LARPing. It's 70 years old LARPing. Since John C. fucking Lilly started his work back in 60 fucking two to today, it's LARPing. It was just LARPing. I'm sorry, I said it.
with those characteristics should have the right to a healthy life, to a choice
Yep.
life,
Oh,
control over
this
their
is
life.
so funny. Do you realize how contradictory this shit is with the whole sanctuary discourse? Do you think those people will give the sanctuary cetacean a choice? Obviously, they don't. They don't give a fuck about. Sanctuary cetacean won't have a healthy life. They know this. The social structures are completely destroyed. They will have I'm pretty sure they will have sex segregation. They will be totally atomized by institutionalization and whatnot. Captivity, one of the biggest fucking facilities, have issues with stress, stereotypical behavior, boredom, the impossibility for them to hunt, impossibility for them to socialize to other cetaceans. All of this shit will be denied. Total control by a staff of like trainers and shit. But obviously there will be still a training system based on operant conditioning or food deprivation. All of the fucking shit. Two cetaceans won't have a choice. This is a fucking lie. Okay? The problematic of choice is one of the biggest one. Those people basically fucking wipe their ass with the notion of choice. That's it. They like to mess with the notion, but they don't give a fuck about it.
I mean, this is, I think, what this definition will do for a non-human species to an extent.
Yeah, okay.
I agree. I mean, we're talking.
Will do over their life species to an extent.
Okay. No, I thought you meant something
agree. I
else.
mean, we're talking about species-specific needs being met. We're not talking about seeing dolphins or little humans swimming around in the ocean. They are completely
What?
dolphins or
What?
little
What are you?
specific needs being met. We're not talking about seeing dolphins or little humans swimming around in the ocean.
I don't. What do you mean by little humans? This is important, right? Because obviously they're different, blah blah. But the importance is what are the commonalities? Sapiency, culture, social structure. This is the point. Is the universal behind the particular. Those people miss the mark. They talk in vague generalities. What do they mean by human? What do they mean by person? They don't give a fuck about this shit. They just masturbate with that. Do you think they give a single fuck about notion like personhood? Do you think they realize the importance of handling those concepts?
They are a completely different species, but they can be a non-human person if they have certain cognitive characteristics, as you talked about, that we share with them. And so, I mean, it's really become sort of a mainstream idea. It's part of the furniture now in terms of philosophical thinking.
It's kind of true and kind of false, but whatever.
Scientific
Don't go with
thinking,
that.
legal thinking. And hopefully, at some point, I mean, this is all about dolphins being able to lead a dolphin life, right?
Yes, that would just, of course, that would live a dolphin life in a fucking sanctuary, Laurie. You're so fucking damn smart. Oh my god. Fuck, whatever.
Right? Yeah.
Do you realize this? They realize base issues with the way they reason. They realize base issues that clearly go into contradiction with their take on sanctuarization, or they don't give a fuck about it. It just it's like it's the definition of fucking missing the mark. It's incredible. The cognitive dissonance of those people. It's just not them. Thomas White is the same. It's all the fucking same.
Yeah.
I defend Richard Lobari a bit more when it comes to that, but like, come on,
Not
they're all the fucking same.
No,
Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, your sanctuary project is so important. For so many years, we all listened to the Black.
Do you realize that they just talked about choice on the next? And also, before you, I know this is a point of content, not a real point of contention, but it tends to block the conversation. They mean captive sanctuary. That mean captive sanctuary, okay? I know that the notion of sanctuary tends to be used for like some national parks, blah blah, like the Belugas sanctuary in the Mediterranean. Also, domesticated, I had the term, but domesticated animal sanctuaries are very different from a organizational point of view with so-called wild animal sanctuaries. Domesticated animal sanctuaries tend to function in a more, at least in my experience, in a more open, informal view, where non-humans have more interpersonal relations with others, blah blah. It's still shit in the sense that property, blah blah, but at least there is more fluidity and whatnot. On de facto, domesticated animals suffer less from the effects of captivity and confinement. And even then, it depends, because horses, for instance, suffer a lot from confinement in stables and shit. But like so-called wild animal sanctuaries are like, they're just institutional systems, okay? It's just Foucault point X. That's it. Everyone with half a brain can realize this shit. I'll try to make a stream where I show you different, I already made it, but with the better setup, where I show you different sanctuaries, dolphinariums, to show you the layout, blah blah, how they're organized. But basically, if you can make the research yourself, it speaks for itself. It just speaks for itself. You look at the satellite image of the different swim facilities in Florida or the Bahamas or whatever the fuck, and you see this shit. You see the different compartmenting of different enclosure for the cetaceans and whatnot. It's all the same fucking shit, okay? That's it.
Black and white, right? Like either they're in the wild or they're in captivity. It's like, hey, there's a third option, right? Like we do this further.
Third option, sure, yeah. Because sanctuaries are not captivity. Like, come on. There's no third option. It's just captivity with extra steps. It's literally it. At least, and I know some, okay, I fucking hate the film industry, but I know that the ALAT facility at some point, and then I believe the UNEXO on the Rotan Institute at least escort some of the captive dolphins outside under some kind of surveillance system. Which, do you think those people will do that? By God, no, no. I guarantee you, they won't do that. Especially with the whole disc of hyper-medicalization, blah blah. No, 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 no. When even some marginal aspects of the dolphinarium industry, which are the baddies, I mean, they just are more progressive than some of the, I mean, all of the current sanctuary projects, it speaks volumes. It just speaks volumes.
She's already, right? Chimps and giraffes. They have a sanctuary. They're given the dignity of life.
They're not. I talked about it when it came to the other fucking stream. There is no dignity in captivity. This is a lie. Those people are lying to you. What dignity is there in restriction of displacement in space, restriction in the way you use certain spaces in time, restriction of in hunting, restriction in the possibility to meet other cetaceans, restriction in mating, because those people want to prevent them from having sex on children and whatnot, which is kind of justified, but there are problems with it as well. Like total institutional surveillance. Those people, there is no dignity in captivity. My God, dignity of life. Do you realize how indecent this discourse is? Do you imagine if, like, we had some people like living in some kind of like total captive setting in some camp mental institution, and then they will with everything it implies in terms of control, suffering, and some people, oh, at least they have the dignity of life. I'm sorry, but what dignity do they have in that? No, no, there is no dignity in captivity. I will hammer that until the end of the fucking times. This is clear. Please realize how those people, Marino, Visser, blah blah, love to use is to load the terms like beautiful, dignity, blah blah, in order to instrumentalize or not obfuscate the key problem here.
You know, we can't maybe release them, but we can give them.
Again, I go over the arguments against release, blah blah. Yes, especially when it comes to ethology, because the part of the problem is the misconsideration of behavior as a sure tool when it comes to understanding mental states, on the whole, not only the brain, but especially how behavior is misused in a tacit way to understand the key issue. But I go over that in other stream. This is extremely important. I know this is some very specific scientific shit, but I promise you, ethology, Conrad Lorenz, behaviorist, blah blah, this is key. This is just key.
A lot of freedom and at least.
There is no freedom. This is bullshit. They can't fucking hunt. There is total risk. Also, this is important. One of the myths, which is fucking bullshit, I know it. One of the myths of the sanctuary model is that it's just going to be like a bay with a net. This is a lie. This is a lie. This is confirmed by satellite imagery like concept art and whatnot. All of the sanctuary projects we have division of space, all of them. This is the model used by dolphin ministry to control cetaceans. It won't change there. It just won't. It's already the case with the two belugas in Helmachey. It will be the case for future sanctuary cetaceans. Also the case with the current Witcherobari project.
Decent future
An activist that will tell you that it's not the case is lying or is a fucking idiot.
rather than.
We can do a whole lot better for them. Exactly.
Exactly.
This is, it's interesting because incrementalism can be justified in certain aspects. On this, I don't believe it is. Obviously, I prefer them to be in a less problematic, in a less restrictive setting. Obviously, I'm not an idiot. But at the same time, the whole problem with the sanctuary system is that it morally justifies captivity in a way that the dolphinarium industry couldn't. They have an entire mindset on toolkit using shame, guilt, doxas and whatnot to justify sanctuarization in a way that even the old industry couldn't. And they have this pseudo-ethical, scientific, and most importantly, activists are totally neutered. Totally neutered. There are some faint exceptions, but apart from them, like very marginal exceptions, the immense majority of activists are totally willing to look at those sanctuaries critically, not even like inspect them, like send a mole trying to look on them. Oh, it's nice, but maybe you could like make things differently, blah, blah. Not even that. They don't give a fuck. Which is interesting with the sanctuary system is that it presents itself as basically an end of history narrative. If you watched Blackfish, it's like this Fukuyama shit. I swear to fucking God. It's, they will end those nice sanctuaries. End of the fucking story. End of the fucking story. Which is the big lie, by the way.
A whole lot.
Right.
A lot.
My hope is that first contact will... Basically, my hope is that we will use first contact to hammer the possibility for cetaceans to speak for themselves, including the captive ones. That's my hope. For them to say, no, we don't want to be fucking captive. We want this, we want that, fuck you. That's what we want, basically. A fucking standpoint, not standpoint theory in this, what they say this, so we have to. No. Hard standpoint theory. Like, what are their claims? What do they want? This shit. This is what we need.
Closer to what they need to thrive.
No, they don't give a fuck about this. Again, they don't give a fuck about territoriality. They don't give a fuck the problem of property. They don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck about institutionalization. They don't give a fuck about the problem of control. They don't give a fuck about the use of chemical castration or sex segregation as a bunch of ethical issues. They don't give a fuck about this shit. They just don't care.
I am going to turn to some questions because we have a bunch of them that came in earlier as well as are coming in now. So I'll sort of go back and forth between them. This question is from Anna. Anna asked, you mentioned that paternal lines are tracked through sampling of fecal matter. How many maternal lines are tracked, and do you do mitochondrial DNA tracking?
Yes, to the last part. Yeah, absolutely. Part of what we do is process mitochondrial DNA, mostly to just verify our observations with the calves.
Okay, the pronounced cats instead of chat.
Who's our geneticist colleague?
Maybe it's not that. Maybe it means no. This cats. Okay, no, I thought you were referring to the CH system. Like this is retarded for some. Sorry, I shouldn't use that word. Sorry, this is inane for so many reasons.
And we did have one calf that didn't match her mom.
Okay, calf. Okay,
so we suspect it's either an adoption or it could be a software program issue too. Apparently, there's some error in some of the
adoption, interspecies adoptions on adoptions as a whole is a staple of cetacean societies. It's ubiquitous in a lot of different species and cultures and groups. This is one of the big lines of evidence when it comes to cetacean sapiency, but I'll go over that later.
Software processing, yes. So we do mitochondrial DNA, and then we do microsatellites for the paternity, correct?
Great. Thank you. Here's a great question, and this is sort of one of those big questions from Amber, who is working on her PhD in experimental psychology, and with an emphasis on animal social behavior. So,
Fuck, they converted my...
And she really wants to understand if you have any words of advice for how she could get involved in the kind of work that you do.
So basically, Jan Fossey wannabes like wanking, so they can make a bigger fucking circle jerk while more people will fucking wank. And the same concept for like.
Like what
Sorry, I
kind
get
of
pissed, but like,
training
I shouldn't get pissed that much. I should be less spectacular, more into analysis. But
would she need? Where would she look for potential experiences, internships, opportunities, things of that nature?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I suggest either getting a really basic biology degree, doing the hard stuff, chemistry.
I mean, do you really need? Do you don't read? I mean, sure. No, no, no. First, no. Okay, no. They mean like working that field. No, it's okay. I thought they meant something else.
Or psychology, depending on your twist. There's tons of
I
opportunities.
don't believe we should like work in biology to work in that field. My hope is also that if some academics want to take the problem, that they could be outside of biology, like anthropology and philosophy and shit, which is urgent, whatever, linguistics especially. Whatever. I'm sorry.
Opportunities to volunteer around the world. You can get on Marmam list server, which is
The Marmar are a bunch of. I don't like those people to say the least, but we'll go over
a
that
marine
one.
mammal list server that has opportunities, and the Society
Wait.
for Marine Mammalogy certainly has job and intern opportunities.
Also, like those people also collaborate. Harsing doesn't, she's opposed, but like I know for a fact that the Marmar should collaborate with the pharma industry. Like those people tacitly, like this is. I know. Okay, I know that it could be used as a counter argument about what I said earlier with the fact that they don't collaborate with each other, knowing that some of the first contact projects are on captives. But like when it comes to something like first contact, isn't it urgent to try to like collaborate with each other despite the ideological differences? Like the fact that they're not even the fact is not just because they could acknowledge them and say, okay, Sugarman, Kuya, blah blah, they exist, we don't like them, and we explain why. No, no, they don't do that. They don't refer to each other in their respective papers when they do papers, because this is another problem, like peer review studies and shit. They Let's say that they're quite liberal with the way they publish data and whatnot, which is another problem I go over. But like, whatever.
And you just have to reach out. I mean, there is nothing more valuable to a field researcher like me if someone comes along with basic skills, people skills, organizational skills, data collecting skills, data, and it can be different data. It's not like everybody has to have dolphin experience. The point is, do you have that kind of mind and perseverance and passion? Frankly, is really important. Perseverance and passion goes a long way because it's not easy. I mean, it looks easy. It's our work, like, oh, beautiful clear water. It's always nice. No, it's
This is also no, this is a contrived point, but basically the bias we have culturally over clear waters is a big fucking issue, because first it's part of a certain mythology of the dolphin that was constructed in Florida by the 60s and whatnot. Like the whole exoticist view of cetaceans, like dolphins living in clear water in a nice beach and shit. When you have, for instance, big fucking accessible cetacean population in France, in the middle of Brittany, in like cold water with a lot of storms and shit. And secondly, my work, for instance, water tends to be murky, but in the area where we walk in the seaport of Seine, it tends to be clear most of the time. So it's more or less reproduces Bahamian conditions, but like with very relative with commas. But it tends to, because one of the I go over the way sanctuaries tend to advocate for themselves, but basically they tend toward creating an ideal view of like the nice bay enclosed with a nice, pretty fucking bay. The problem is that basically waters which are shallow and have with clear water are basically sterile environments, if you will. The waters which are the most full of fish, basically, are precisely waters which are extremely fucking murky because of phytoplankton, and basically extremely fucking like full of currents and shit, and which are deep as well. So cetaceans tend more to thrive. There are exceptions, but cetaceans tend to thrive more in areas which are counterintuitively to to us, murky, blah blah, than places that look like a fucking nice Florida beach. But it's whatever.
Not there's sharks, there's hurricanes, there's large waves, there's jellyfish. I mean, it goes on and on, right? For any field project. So yeah, experience. Get the degrees, do the work, find good mentors and good people to study under who are doing what you like, if you can. You know what you're interested in, because that'll be the training you get.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I mean, just to add to that, in any area of science that you think you're attracted to, find a way to get exposed to it. Because it may be the best thing that's ever happened, and
So
it's
very
even
interesting.
better than you thought, or it may not be what you thought.
Right.
And so the best way to know that before going through 8 years of graduate school and a postdoc is to just do it. And if
Right.
you don't like,
Yep. What I do. Meanwhile, most of the people are not doing anything or doing the same fucking shit for 30 years, which is the fucking definition of insanity.
sitting in front of a computer or swimming and trying to catch dolphin poop or whatever the science is, then don't do it and do something else that you're passionate about.
There you go. Use your skills and your passion together.
It's not interesting.
Right, exactly.
Just know me talk.
Exactly. Let's see. Here's a question. Okay. This is from Nicole. She asks, I've seen that you guys are beginning to use drones to film
Okay.
animals. Has this
They use fucking drones, but they aren't capable of sending them like the simple phonemes that they have deconstructed from their vocalization. I can't believe this shit. This whatever.
showing promise as a good tool to
Why are they not? I want to. Why? Why are they not using those fucking? They know the problem. This is trolling. This is plain and simple trolling. They know the problem. They explicitly they talk about it, formulate it, and they're not acting upon it. They're fucking children. Can't believe this shit.
using marine mammal.
They've started this fucking war when I was still in the fucking left testicle of my father. And they know I'm 28 years old, and they haven't changed a bit. Ah.
Research.
Absolutely, yes. Many researchers, of course, have adopted drones. I mean, it gives us the bird's eye view, right? We don't usually have the bird's eye view.
Right.
Yeah, and, we have a student, Leah McPherson, who just is off to Hawaii recently for graduate work, who has been using a drone on our boat to track animals when we can't get in the water and follow them, and they don't want us in the water. We
Mhm.
put up the drone, follow them, we can look at group coordination. We can even identify individuals with the drone, which is pretty cool if they have a
Yes.
unique markings. Yeah.
That is-
So-
yeah.
And in the Bahamas, because the habitat is very much a contrast, white sand and dark dolphin bodies, you can see the habitat they go over, reefs and sand. So this will give us a real ground truthing of where they hang out, when we're not there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the other
Exactly.
thing
Oh, shit, they should
we're
have picked up
using is
whatever.
passive acoustic monitoring, where we put down devices.
Do you realize this shit? They're making passive acoustic monitoring, fucking drones, fucking all of this shit. But the simple thing they formulated, which will be playing them back the phonemes they use to create some kind of bridge language, they're incapable of doing it. In 30 years. Do you realize this? This is insanity. I cannot believe this shit. I was aware of how stupid the CHT system was, but I wasn't aware of that. This is way worse than I thought. I
that record sounds 24/7. So this is another extreme, one's in the air, one's on the bottom of the sandbank, but they're both collecting data. In the case of sounds, we can leave it set up for a month or two and collect sounds. And, it doesn't give us what's going on visually with the dolphins, but it gives us a sense of when they're around, who's going by species, and we can even identify signature whistles in our data. Which
Oh
is
my
pretty
god,
cool.
again, they made a database of phonemes that they deconstructed and they could more or less link to specific situation. They know they can play them back. They talk about it, they didn't do it in 30 years. This is, I'm sorry to repeat myself like a broken fucking disc, but this is, I think they didn't even talk about CHC system. It's possible that she doesn't even talk about it because she knows how dumb it is. I, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This makes me want to fucking cry. It's like
So these are all really great techno tools, of course, that
techno
we
tool.
all
Yeah,
love and
sure.
use. And there's many, many other uses for drones. People
Yeah.
are looking at health measures,
I know where I would like to shove the fucking drone. By the way.
pregnancy, all these things that are really powerful that we haven't had the ability to do well.
Right, exactly. And they do adapt to them. I mean, they obviously, you don't want to just be flying a drone over a group of animals, but you
Why?
know,
First, they do it for documentaries and shit. Secondly, they don't necessarily react negatively to it. We know it because they use drones for filming baleen whales and whatnot, and they didn't necessarily have those negative reactions. Like Pierre Robert de la Tour uses them. I can't believe this shit. I can't believe I'm hearing this shit. I can't believe. Fuck's sake, this was worse than I thought.
there is an adaptation process as well, correct?
Whatever, this.
Right, sure. Yeah, and people have explored and tested, the altitude you want the drone at and different things like that. So
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
are being careful, and there are rules, right? In
Yes, yes.
the FAA world in the United States, at least.
Right. I'm going to turn to a question from somebody who submitted it by email. And this is from Kathleen. And she asked, and I get this question quite a lot too. Can dolphins intercept each other's echolocation and
Yeah, this is
share experience? Can they
basically this was
share a
a
sense of
sorry, this was just a technical thing. Apparently they can. It's something that I think Kazewitz is the one that studied that specific point a lot. So then it's not important. It's just technical shit. Whatever. It's not important. I don't give a fuck. This is retarded. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use that word. Like,
self by sharing their echolocation in a way that perhaps is even beyond what we know.
I mean,
Um,
obviously, it's going beyond what we know because they have all the qualias, because they use frequencies that are way beyond what we can hear. We know that shit, right? I mean, this is nothing new. I mean, fucking Lily back in '66 knew that shit, okay? That's not new. The problem isn't there. The problem is what are the ethical implications of this? Those people handle ethics like a fucking kid with a fucking grenade. That's it.
and this was an idea that has been put forth by Harry Jerrison in his book about, maybe they're so
I don't know whom,
Jerrison.
whom?
And this was an idea that has been put forth by Harry Jerrison.
I don't know who Harry Jerrison is. I have no idea. I may let me just make a slide. Yeah, Richard Harrison. No, no, I can't find it. Whatever. I don't know if it's important as a reference.
In his book about, maybe they're so tight, they're so socially cohesive that they actually can see each other's echolocation clicks. I'm not sure about that.
It's so funny. The fact that they don't refer to Kasewitz is funny to me. It's like, do you realize this? Those people sometimes like for instance, Heusing refers to Herman and Rice basically, but all of the other, including fucking Lily, including fucking Kuyai, she doesn't give a flying fuck. Okay, maybe she talked about Kuyai. I have a doubt on that. But if you look at their publication official website, it's absolutely clear they fucking hate each other. Absolutely clear.
But it
This is
is
not surprising. We see this shit in other fields. We see this shit in politics. Why is it surprising to see it in the cetacean field?
question. So I wondered if you got
Ah,
asked
shit.
that question and what you think.
Well, I mean, what I know about their echolocation system, and this has been tested, is that it's about the position of the second animal, right? So we know from experimental work. So if where's my hand here? If this is a mother dolphin and the calf is under here, and the mother is echolocating on something, her clicks are going to bounce off an object,
Mhm.
back to her. So if the calf is in the right position underneath, the calf is going to get part of that bounce and probably start to learn, oh, that echolocation highlight that's coming back represents a fish at this angle or a species. It's kind of what bats do, really, right? They get highlight echoes that come
Sorry.
back. So
Her dumb Karen voice triggers the fuck out of me. I'm sorry.
it,
I know I was accused. Okay, fuck, I'm non-binary, but I know that sometimes when I talk about soccer moms and Karens and shit, it can be seen as kind of sexist discourse. My point is, it's not just first, it's not like woman. It's like a very specific way of like performing womanhood by people that have a certain social status and shit. And secondly, is the way they instrumentalize the way they talk on the way they engage into that field, which is problematic. So, for instance, Marino does that, absolutely sure of this. But Dennis Herzing explicitly talked about when she had like Bob the Killer Way in that fucking tank. She explicitly talks about being some kind of mother, blah blah, having that mom position and whatnot. Like they explicitly use that performative use of femininity in that conventional view of femininity by our societies to justify forms of control over situations. Absolutely fucking sure of this. Okay, it's absolutely sure of this. I could die on that hill easily. I mean, man, do you think it's a coincidence that in a lot of fields, especially institutionalization, religion, whatnot, you see near systematically like this type of the white Anglophone woman from the suburbs, from middle class, blah blah, holding key position when it comes to care and institutions. It's not that I'm sorry, like. It's not that, oh, but it's bad woman. It's not this, or, oh, you put more diversity on it fixes the shit. It's like how certain performative position in society, the way you talk, you show, dress, blah, blah, can be used to justify relations of power. Here it appears, and I've seen it in other non-human fields, basically, by the way. Because people don't hesitate to go on like loads, Time First is dead, but like, who's she called? Fucking, Jane Goodall. Oh, she's the nice old lady. Yes, the nice old lady that totally supports captivity or whatnot of chimps. No, it's not. And then obviously there's the way they argue, because I'm sorry, I argue with I don't know if I argue with Marino. I argue with someone from the Kimela Center, which is the organization owned by Marino. But like I saw like the way she like orgs. First, she's an extremely bad debater, extremely mediocre debater. She basically uses shame, guilt, like, oh, how dare you use that term? Like, why do you want to dump them in the ocean? How irresponsible of you! I talk with hundreds of fucking like I'm sorry, most of them are Karens online in the fucking citation field. They use the same fucking arguments in the same fucking way. They use guilt and shame to try to shame you to never organize sanctuaries or the problems that have to do with captivity by using guilt on this moral aspect of like justification of captivity to get you to shut down the conversation. But how irresponsible of you! Like, do you want him to die? This poor fucking shit. And then obviously there is this whole, but there is this mini risk. Therefore, we shouldn't release them. There is the possibility that the shark might bite on their fucking tail. Therefore, we like all this fucking shit. This is basically, I'm sorry, it's like a fucking crazy mom preventing the child from to go out because they could be hit by a car or whatever. It's the same fucking line of reasoning. It's fucking madness. Shouldn't say it, I'm sorry, it's ablaze. I don't give a fuck. I'm neurodivergent, but I shouldn't use that terms. But basically, it's like, it's totally incoherent. Totally incoherent. But it's all to justify a relation of power. It's all to justify a certain status quo. That's it.
it's kind of like us looking at an object and we're seeing photons reflecting, right, from an object. And so we learn what a lamp looks like at different angles because we're seeing it in the
Like
light.
this whole like paranoid, like sorry, you shouldn't use paranoid. I'm really sorry, I shouldn't use those terms. But like this fuck you see the pregnancy of language over whatever. But like this over okay, I'll use the political correct term. This over shit. They do this all the time. The pro caps also use this. This overbearing, over concerned take of there is the minimum danger. Oh, but what if this happen? Instead of looking at it analytically, piece by piece, looking at the data, papers, what were done previously. Also, like previous liberation cases clearly show it goes in our direction. Basically, I go over the Kenneth Balcom list on all of this shit, but like basically it goes in our direction. But like instead of like seriously looking at the data, including stuff that look damning like Keiko Atlantis, they just they use those ad hoc arguments. Oh yes, but they make happen. Therefore, there should be captivity. It's whatever.
Right.
Mhm.
So we learned that
Well,
way.
also men do it, obviously. They don't necessarily use the same words and shit. Like my interaction with a lot of older women, like this soccer mom type, is basically that they try to shame me, and then men tend to have this more like machismo bravado position of trying to attack you directly on, but it's basically some fucking shit.
too. Yeah, I
But
would go if
I
they
fucking
can.
I fucking love. I don't know if it's because I'm non-binary, but I fucking love this performative use of gender as a weapon. I fucking love this. Whether if it, whether it's like the men type of go talk to me like a man, this bro shit, or it's like the soccer mom shit. I fucking hate it. It basically my point is that this use of like performative situated womanhood is basically a product of patriarchy. I'll die on that hill. I die on that hill like I don't give a fuck. Like this fucking saint from like Christianity lore with the 10,000. I think it's Saint Sebastian with the 10,000 arrows. I'll die on that hill easily.
Project those signals back. There's some interesting work called phantom echo work,
Hmm.
where experimenters try to fool a dolphin by projecting their own echo off an object
I wasn't aware of that, but whatever.
and seeing if they can
Yeah, we're fooling dolphins with their echoes, but not sending them back the fucking phonemes with they constructed from the language. This is the definition or whatever.
match that echo, and they did. So we think that that's it's acoustic information that represents to them an object in that case. Now whether they could reproduce a phantom echo themselves, like if they saw a fish, like taking a
Sorry, 1 minute. I wish I had two monitors and each monitors. Um, yeah, phantom echo generation, a new technique for investigating 90 fucking 8. By whom? Oh, Bauer. I think I heard about him. Oh, let me show you. Where'd the code? No. Bursting. I'm not familiar with those names. Yeah, well, there's Herzing. I'll use that. If they have fully programmed control over the echo generation, why didn't they use this to create some kind of first contact to be a middle language and whatnot? Do you realize this, right? They have the tools to do this shit, and they don't do it. They don't do it. That's the thing as well. We think that frequency translocation is probably the best tool, but in theory, some methods, for instance, some of the one put by Herzing, Herman, Janus, this one, in theory, it could have been Bateau as well, the early wind Bateau experiment. In theory, the contrived system, they could have been used. I mean, humans don't just speak like with like, speech with like vocal cords and shit. We also use sign language or like Morse and shit. So in theory, we could use other forms of language. But the fact that all of them had the tools to do this shit and never used them, it's like if you don't believe me, go and look at the data yourself. Like I'm extremely confident when it comes to that. No, but do you realize this? They have a tool to modulate. Sorry, modulate. First, this shows that they study, but like, if they could do that to a certain degree of complexity and fidelity, I really wonder what is the point of Kasewitz on the Elvis walk because it's basically some shit. and it was after 98. But like basically, if they can't do this, why are they not using this to create some kind of middle language? They basically have a tool to send modulated echoes, or they're not using it to create a pidgin language. It's wild. It's I can't believe this shit. Yeah, I'm making some whatever. I love to research. I make some research on Islam and politics. This is important. Yeah.
A Polaroid shot, I guess, and showing right? Whether they can do that and show them what fish they had for dinner last night, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure how that translates to sense of self. Um, like I suspect they have a lot of emotional information in their sounds, from
Yeah.
prosodic features like rhythm and intensity, and like we do, right?
I mean, what? Yeah, this is what Bateson called the paralingual shit. No, it's yeah, the paralingual, and then there was another concept. Forgot the name of it, but whatever. This is no me. This is no me shit. It has been shown for like a lot of much of the animal kingdom, especially the birds. This not.
Not really not
Exactly.
telling you know what's going on,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
They
No,
have a
all these
system
things are very
to send their phonemes back, and they're not using it. This is
communicative. So I suspect it's more that maybe than echolocation, but I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
I mean, yeah, but echolocation, that's the thing, right? What we know from cetaceans is that, yes, they used echolocation primarily evolved as a tool to analyze their environment, but then it was co-opted for communication. So it could be used as both. They could echolocate and it could be perceived as a form of communication. Either, well, is it like more paralingual or does it convey meaning is also the question. But like, whatever, this is not important. This is no shit. This is the baby understanding of this whole fucking linguistic epistemological problem. This
of
is
self, right? Obviously, they have an individual sense of self, right? They know that they are one dolphin and those are the other dolphin. They have that. They are clearly very socially cohesive, but how that impacts how they view themselves, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to think about that in the context of mass strandings, for instance.
no, no, no,
And
no, no,
other
no, 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 no,
things.
no, 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 no. Okay, I know if she's going to advocate. Okay, cetacean suicide is something that is well shown by in captivity, and is one of the strongest arguments toward the idea of cetacean sapiens, if not the strongest one. There's one like three at least anecdotal evidence, a lot of circumstantial evidence from a bunch of captives, and then there's like two video evidence of it, which is pretty damning, both in Japan. But like, if she's saying that mass stranding is the product of suicide, this is not true. This is an urban legend that I don't know where the fuck it comes from. That has been shown, and that I'm pretty sure it's used to obfuscate the fact that it directly comes from solar testing or whatnot. If she's going to say that, I'm going to kill myself in Minecraft. I don't give a fuck.
And it's just, it's one of these things that is very difficult to actually ask them.
Or maybe she's saying like, oh yeah, maybe during mass training they'll distress, whatever, which we know they have, like whatever. It's not important. This is normal shit. This is not important. This is
Or probe.
Well, I think they have a sense of their group, like you said, and their coalition, and their relationship, their mother and their sibling, and that sort of thing. I mean, I think what's been really interesting for our work also is recognizing that they have strong personalities, and that a group can be quite diverse. You can have the aunt who never reproduces being the babysitter, and there's like a role for everybody, right? You have the tomboy females, and they might end up reproducing, but they're kind of tomboys, right? They
Yeah,
hang out
yeah.
with boys, but whatever, right? And same with
this
the
is not particularly surprising. With homosexual behavior is ubiquitous in cetaceans. It's even arguably the norm in some groups because of like the male-female differences. I mean, not segregation, but like basically females and males having their own groups, especially in some toolships. Not all of them, but some toolships populations. So in elephants as well, like most sexual relationships they have outside of like I don't, as far as I'm aware, cetaceans don't have mating seasons per se. They don't come into heat on shit, but like elephants do. On the side of the heating system, most of the sexual relationships between elephants and homosexual, basically, or whatever. It's
The male dolphins, they have different degrees of boldness and shyness. So
Mm-hmm.
I
personality
mean,
shows their individual
sorry.
nature quite lovely, but it also
Also, like white widow wolves, well, like what? They're not wolves. They're fucking sea pens. Fuck you. Uh, this is normie shit. This is shit we know empirically. This is nothing new. I don't know what they're musing with it. Instead of talking about important concepts, I don't know.
coalesces into a society that's
Yeah.
healthy.
And everyone has their own role to play, depending
That's
upon
right.
who they are, what they like, what what they're good at, what they, just like us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
We only have a couple of minutes left, but I'm going to try to get to just a couple more questions, if you don't mind. So here's a question from Richard, who asks, and I think I can answer this, but I'm going to let you answer it. Um, has anyone tried applying mathematics to the language of dolphins?
Oh my god, this fucking stupid shit. Well, yeah, some did, but like the Fourier stuff or this whole fucking Alan Turing view of the problem, which leads fucking nowhere. For fuck's sake. Ah shit, I'm so sorry, but like this is like the skeletal rides, with the meme. It's whatever.
Well,
And
Tomorrow I'll stream on go over the other another West Sanctuary project video. This is important.
I guess yes and no. Yeah, but we don't know if they have a language, first of all, right? So
No, yes, we do. We have like first Herzing claims they have. She literally goes take phonemes and deconstruct them. She has the power to confirm this through playback. She doesn't do it. Secondly, we have enormous circumstantial evidence for it. We have all of the fucking data by Lily, by Herman, by Kuyai, by all of these Russian researchers like Markov, Ostriev and shit. All of this fucking shit. Those people don't give a fuck about data. Those people they don't care. They just muse about, like, no, I'm sorry. The data is too strong nowadays. I'm sorry, and also, why wouldn't they have first? Even if you're like conservative on this, you must go toward the idea of proto language. Proto language was well evidenced even in monkeys, parrots, and shit. There's extremely good evidence from especially Aaron Pepperberg work that parrots have like some form of language. So if parrots can have it, I'm sorry, why cetaceans that clearly are more advanced cognitively can't have it? Secondly, I'm sorry, it's like, do you realize this shit? They talk about cetacean like, oh no, no, pure scientists, we don't know. Fuck you, we know. Your own fucking research goes in that direction. I can't believe this shit. They have the tool to confirm this. They have the tool to create first contact. They don't give a fuck about it. This is.
mathematics, I don't know. Maybe you should answer. Maybe you know more than I do.
well,
Well, I mean, there's things like information theory. I mean,
exactly,
yeah, sure,
exactly.
of course.
More wanking, more fucking potting shit on the turd. It's fucking shit.
Lawrence Doyle and others have applied.
Exactly. And that is using statistics and probabilities and looking at structure in the language. How is that different from the kind of analysis you're doing?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, I think what information theory gives you is a sense of the complexity of the language or the communication. It doesn't really tell you if it's a language or if it has meaning in certain ways.
I mean, yes or no. Depends your definition of language. I mean, first, Herzing has shown, for instance, that there were patterns in the way human language function that were analogous in cetaceans. So again, I don't know what she's like. Oh no, pure skepticism. We don't know if they have a language. Back it up, people. Well, everything from her TED talks to her papers to her advocacy is about the idea of cetacean language. Secondly, like, no, we have stuff like Morse language. Computers use what we can understand analytically as a form of language, like. I won't go over it because I know it's out of my field, but I'm pretty confident that they're wrong on this.
With no
It does show
content.
babbling, like the beluga work, right? So we know that young animals learn like human babies do, basically. They kind of throw out a lot of stuff and again, filter it down till they get words. Yeah, so, everything we all does different things. I think information theory would tell you it's probably like worth looking at, I guess, as a complex language, as
Yeah.
compared to human languages, of course. Yeah, what we do, it's a little more structural, looking for actual words, sentences, patterns, rules, and
Okay.
then hopefully down the road, really testing it by maybe playback. So yeah, a little different, but different
Yeah.
approaches. It could probably be
Different
combined.
approaches and all
It's funny
critically
how they talk
important.
about this when all of these those motherfuckers hate each other or never communicate with each other. It's amazing. Like cursing when Herman is never like the current actor will be like the Kuyak team after his death. Sugarman, Kasewitz, the Gavege AB project, this project by Japanese researcher, I forgot the name, Herzing, um, the this Darwin project with the sperm whales, Jim Norman, all of this fucking shit exists. They hate each other, they don't talk to each other. It's fucking amazing.
To really
Yeah,
Fucking amazing.
get at what
This is
is
this
going
galaxy
on
brain shit.
and
yeah,
what their communication system is like.
exactly.
Well, we're just at the hour, but I wanted to just round things off by, I mean, first of all, telling you that I could go on and talk to you all day. So, but and I get to do that because I can just call you and talk to you.
Right.
But we will try to get to some of the questions that haven't been answered because we really appreciate them. Um, Anything you want to leave our audience with in terms of what we need to understand about who dolphins are, and in particular, the dolphins you've been studying for so long?
Well, I think, like we already mentioned, the idea that they have cultures that are unique and they have needs in the wild that
Mm-hmm.
are really disturbed by humans on so many levels, right? Pollution, fish.
Again, it's so interesting how they talk needs in the wild because again, it's a way to obfuscate the social issue. There is no wilderness. If they are have cultures and language, they must understand whatever they have under their noses, fishes, all the cetacean populations, currents and shit, as something that goes under a modality, a cultural or social modality, and we have to deal with it in that way. You can't continue to like obfuscate the fucking problem. Those people are handling extremely thorny philosophical issues like a fucking kid handling a fucking grenade. Whatever. If a fucking philosopher like Thomas White can realize this shit, I mean, I don't want to. I kind of like paragraph marks, but if a giant like fucking Bateson was like basically wasn't able to figure out a key issues when it comes to dolphin language, what fucking dwarfs and fucking Marino and Herzing can understand about these issues? Like,
Fishing, noise. I mean, it's all comes down to human activity, really. So every time we have to look at a rule or a policy, we need to be thinking about what these, and not just dolphins, what these ocean creatures need to survive, and what a healthy ecosystem is for them
they
to
don't
live
care
in.
about this.
Yeah,
They don't care
you
about
can't
this.
take the habitat away from the
They
animals.
don't care about this. If they cared about problem of conservation, they will engage into first contact. I'm sorry, they just don't care. They just want to maintain the status quo. But humans are on the top, and they're at the bottom. That's it.
Right? So this is why we
Right.
do marine sanctuaries and things like
Yeah,
this.
sure. Yeah,
We
they're
have to
absolutely
have the
about
whole group
conservation. Yeah, sure.
together for them. It's not just about saving a dolphin, it's about saving the environment they live
And yes, it's about saving dolphins. I'm not talking to fucking cicadas or fucking pigs or hippos. Obviously, it is saving the environment, but when we save, when we want to talk to cetaceans and hear about their claims, it's saving their environment as a cultural and social space. It's wild to me that I don't understand this shit. They always have to relativize their own fucking discourse about cetacean culture, sapiens, and whatnot to hark back to this normie shit ass NPC take on ecology and whatnot, which is the same fucking shit, which is fundamentally anthropocentric and refuses to question or place in the universe. I can't believe this shit.
in, and allowing them to have healthy water and healthy fish and not so much noise and all these things. So I guess when people, when they vote or think about policy or encourage laws, they need to be thinking about the big picture and what that means for the survival of not only our dolphins and every dolphin in the planet, but the planet. This is pretty
Right, right,
critical.
Right. It really makes a difference. I mean, your behavior makes a difference. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to you coming up to Nova Scotia to see the
Yeah.
sanctuary
We're going to see your nice prison.
when
So,
it's done.
so
Really looking forward to that. And again, I can't thank you
Fucking Karen's Karening. I want to kill myself in Minecraft.
enough, Denise. This has been lovely, and
This
thank
is lovely. Fuck.
you everyone for joining in. And we'll try to get to some of the unanswered questions. If and other than that, be safe, and until next time.
all right. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
What is the? I go for tomorrow. I mean, that was so damning. I go for wait. I stopped there because it's been like 2 fucking hours. I go over that third, this stupid shit, and maybe over the Keiko shit. We'll do all of these, okay?
What is a sanctuary?
No, shut up. I reviewed that video like a few streams ago. I go over these and whatever. This was damning. This was damning. This was worse than like though. She didn't talk about the CHE system. She should have because that was important. And I know I play badly at Civ. I don't care. No, I don't want a catapult. But we'll go over that and hopefully you will understand more of this. Until next time, though. And if you have contentions, if you want to debate, please come. And hopefully we can have a debate on Discord. I have my own Discord. So that's it. Till next time.